All right, we're going to call our workshop meeting to order. It's 2:05, and before we do the invocation and pledge of allegiance, we're going to recess for approximately 15 minutes as the crowd works their way into the building. Thank you. Most of the people are out in the foyer are waiting. Hello, sir. Please take a seat. Most of the people are here for the last item. If we have time to get to it, we do have a 5:05 meeting today also. So we got a lot of things on the agenda to take care of. As soon as Mr. Pickens gets back, we'll get started. And appreciate your patience. Sorry for the problem with the scanner. That was an overlook, and we got that straightened out now. So. Mr. Pickens isn't here. Oh. I'm waiting.
Small, just couldn't see him.
No, he's not. I looked over.
All they ever see you now is the other side of you. You hide him.
I do. I hide him from you. I do. You can go ahead if you need to. I'll wait. We're already waiting. We drink a lot of water. Will you do the invocation? And Mr. Rawls, will you do the pledge?
Absolutely.
Good.
I'm going to say it's the word.
I'm sorry.
I'll just suggest the work. I'm going to say, wait a minute. I'm going to say it's the word.
Did you hear the joke about the paper?
What?
The paper?
Paper?
Terrible.
You've been hanging around Liam too much. He's starting to get into big jokes.
Okay. All right, we're all back, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Pickens to do the invocation and Commissioner Rawls to do the pledge. All stand if you're able to.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this glorious day and all our blessings, Father God. We just thank you for the opportunity to gather here, Father God, as commissioners and staff and concerned citizens, Father God. Let us to be respectful to each other as we listen to the various reports and things that are going to be presented today and maybe decisions that will be made, Father God. Just guide us in our decisions, Father God, and lead us to do the best thing for all of the citizens of Putnam County. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item is going to be public comment on agenda items. We're going to move that down a little bit, and we're going to take those comments after every topic. So if there's a miscellaneous item that's not on the agenda, we'll take that in a few minutes. Next item of business is our Port Authority workshop. Is there any public comment on Port Authority? Okay, probably not.
This gentleman has his hand up here.
Are you here with?
The property.
I'm going to call you. You're next. Okay, so the next item on there is the property purchase offer, Mr. Callahan. So now you can come up, sir. For those of you in the audience, the Board of County Commissioners acts as two responsibility for Putnam County. One is the Port Authority and one is the Putnam County Board of County Commissioner. So we have property that's owned by the Port Authority. And today that's what we're talking about right now before we go back to being Board of County Commissioners. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. For the record, my name is John Tipton. I am the president of Verano Corporation nationally. Here in Florida, I'm president of AltMed Florida. We go under the brand name MOVE, M-U-V. We currently have, we're in the medical cannabis industry. We currently have a 220,000 square foot grow operation in southern Hillsborough County and operate 35 dispensaries. We are looking at the property and have it under contract at 7220.
Okay, I think we're in the wrong thing. Are you here representing Mr. Callahan?
I am. I actually, my understanding is the commission or the county had requested, since we were going to be the ultimate owners of the property, that it get punted from Mr. Callahan to me.
I did not know that. Okay, well, go right ahead. I'm sorry, I was
Ah.
unaware of that. Okay?
Great. So yeah, we have Mr. Callahan's property under contract at 7220 PRC Way, and with the intent of building that out as a grow processing facility for medical cannabis. And in order to do that, we also need to expand it. So we are looking to buy the, and I brought a map to kind of help you a little bit.
It's not working.
I know this is going to be a little difficult without a board, but this is the call center at PRC Way. We are looking to expand a building here and expand that building. And the Port Authority owns roughly 4 acres here and about 8 acres to what I believe is the south. It'd be adjoining St. John's Avenue, between St. John's Avenue and the current PRC Way building. So in order for us to be able to do the expansion necessary to build a similar grow facility as we have in South Hillsborough County, we need to be able to purchase that additional roughly, I think it's about 12 and a half acres.
I am so confused.
button's not
I mean, I see that. Mr. Jake, I really thought Mr. Callahan was going to be making a proposal, and now you came up and you've got your own thing
I
going.
can shed some light on this.
Well,
if
Mr.
you don't mind.
Tipton is representing the group interested in purchasing the property.
Okay.
Actually, he's not.
Oh, I'm
and-
sorry, I thought he was.
No, and this is what I told Mr. Callahan, if you don't mind.
Please.
I'm all for you buying the property. I'm not for you buying it for $25,000 an acre. Land around here is worth a lot more than that. But this contract that we were given is between the Port Authority and Premier Properties. And what I told him was, close the deal with AltMed, sell the building, and have AltMed come in and buy it, because the last thing I want to do is sell him property so he can turn around and sell it to you. That would not be, in my estimation, what's best for the taxpayers and their dollars and their land. We would love to have the jobs in Putnam County. We need them desperately, obviously.
Yeah,
But
we won't close the deal with Mr. Callahan without knowing that we can buy this additional property.
I'll tell you personally,
Okay, wait a
at the,
minute. wait.
at the right price, I'm in favor of selling it, but not with what's here. And I don't find that it's favorable to the public to negotiate where he's a transactional broker, making money, buying a piece of property and turning and flipping it to you, because that's not the intent. Not that I understand.
No, I agree. I don't disagree with you. And frankly, I had, we wanted to, from the beginning, be the purchaser. Mr. Callahan and I understand, since he currently owns this building, we don't. He wanted to be able to control the surrounding properties until he knew for sure we were going to buy it.
See, I have a problem with that. This is taxpayers' property. And I shouldn't have a guy from the Midwest negotiating on behalf of the taxpayers of Putnam County.
Right. And Mr. Rawls, maybe you're the one who voiced the objection to Mr. Callahan, and that's when he called me and said, look, the county would rather deal with you personally. So I said, fine.
That is
That's-
not,
You know,
that's not the conversation I had with Mr. Callahan. You done, Mr.?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Turner?
I'm not quite sure how we got from there to here. What was your last name again?
Tipton, T-I-P-T-O-N.
Okay. I'm not sure how we got from there to here. I have no issue with this deal at all, other than the fact that I'm exactly like Commissioner Rawls. I don't have, well, not exactly, but closer. I don't have an issue selling you the property under the economic development, just like we did the Magnet building to Camarco, just like we did, we'd be willing to probably do another parcels in the park. I have no problem with that, but I do have a problem selling the property at a discount to a speculator. Mr. Callahan's a good guy, and I like him, and I'm not putting this down on him at all, but we would be selling the property, in my opinion, at a discounted rate to a speculator. So if we could come up with a deal somehow, and I don't know exactly how to get there, maybe I need Rich to chime in or something, but if we could come up with a deal to where if you've got a contract with them, and then we agreed to sell you the property if that contract went through, then it kind of eliminates the stuff that we're selling county property to a speculator to sell to you.
I would absolutely do
I
that.
mean, that makes,
Yeah.
in my book, that makes a difference, because then we're selling to the end user, we're not selling to the speculator.
And my understanding of today's conversation was relating to the process the authority wanted to go through if they wanted to sell that property. And my comment to Mr. Tipton and Mr. Callahan was really that, traditionally we would get an appraisal so that we had an understanding from a certified commercial appraiser what the property's worth before you could make that decision.
Yeah, but if I still
You
have
have
the
the
floor,
floor,
but
sir.
if that's my understanding, the properties that were owned by the port, such as the Magnet Building and such as properties like that, that it's not unusual for us to sell them at less than what the full appraised amount is, because the whole reason the port's here is for economic development and to take that property and use it to promote jobs and business and further taxes and get it back on the tax rolls and all those sort of things. So under that reasoning, this commissioner doesn't have much of a problem selling the property to the end user to go in there and do what they did, just like Camarco. But if we were gonna sell that building to somebody else to sell to Camarco at a higher rate, I got a problem, because if anybody makes any money off the deal, it's ours, we should make it. But otherwise, I don't think I'm willing to sell it to the investment person. If we're gonna do this, I think we should sell it to the end user.
And that's exactly the conversation I was anticipating that you would have today. What you're describing with the development agreement, that was one of the possible avenues I described as how the property could be sold. Because
Yeah,
then
and
there's expectations from the
Sorry.
county as far as, oftentimes you see there's expectations of job creation, how long you're gonna be here, kind of what investment you're gonna make into the county, and that's something that I would anticipate you would expect.
So in your recommendation, how do we get from where we are to there if the commission decided to do that? If the commission decided to, would we enter into a negotiation with the owner? With the end owner, or with the current, or the current owner? Because I'm not willing to enter into a negotiation with the current owner on a discounted price. If the current owner as an investment is gonna do that, then we need to go have it appraised, we need to do everything, because that is not an economic development deal.
Right, so to answer your question on how do you get from point A to point B, you can
Right.
task staff. Each commissioner should let staff know what expectations they have, and then staff could use those elements to negotiate the terms of the deal as far as putting together a development agreement. But as we sit here today, it's usually not advisable to negotiate in open public. It kind of affects your negotiating ability.
Just to give the commission some
Hang on, Mr.
insight.
Tipton. If everybody could keep down the quiet, I appreciate y'all wanting to visit and be neighborly, but all that sound comes right up here and we can't hear what's going on. You're going to have your time to speak, and believe me, you will. But for right now, we're doing other business, okay? Go right ahead, sir.
Sorry, sure. Yeah, just to give the commission some insight, our current operation in southern Hillsborough County, as I said, is 220,000 square feet. We employ 350 people at that site, and our starting lowest wage is $14 an hour. So, I think we would be good for the county. We're anticipating building somewhere in the neighborhood of a 260,000 square foot facility here and employing somewhere between 350 and 450 people, once it's built out. Full build out probably would take us 2.5 years.
Thank you. Mr. Adamczak, you were next. Then
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Rawls.
I actually prefer the fact that you're standing in front of us over Mr. Callahan, because I like the idea of it being an investment and you being the end user, kind of like Mr. Turner was saying. So if we're eliminating Mr. Callahan, basically is what I'm hearing, and he would be making the offer on the property, I don't know that we need to negotiate that in open public, but I definitely support the jobs coming in and possibly a discounted rate for the properties like we did the other building to Camarco, if there's a job commitment tied to it and things like that under economic development. So I appreciate you being here. We didn't understand that you would be the person here. At least some of us didn't, but thank you for being here, and I'm willing to listen.
Mr. Ross?
Look, as I stated before, I'm in favor of dealing with you, echoing what Mr. Turner said, not with the middleman. Understand your business, understand the potential for it. Great business. I'm very familiar with the cannabis industry in Florida, but at the same time, if you can close the deal with Callahan on his building, then we would be negotiating with the end user. But if we negotiate it with Callahan right now, we're not negotiating with the end user, and that's just not fair to the public.
Well, I would be fine with us being able to, unfortunately, I'm on a tight leash with Mr. Callahan, but I'd be fine with us negotiating something saying that, after I close with this, then I can buy the property for X. I'm fine with that. I just need
Well, that
some type of
negotiation would
assurance
be
that I
with
can
us,
buy
not
the
with Mr.
property.
Callahan. Mr. Callahan has no right.
I think that's what he's saying.
Okay. You would have to negotiate with us one-on-one, not with Callahan.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's exactly what I'm saying,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. Mhm.
Yeah, and I thought I made it abundantly clear to Mr. Callahan when I spoke to him, and I'm probably the commissioner that brought that up to him. But I said, I'm talking to the wrong owner. I need to be speaking to the people that are going to be the end user. That would be fair and equitable for the citizens of Putnam County, not the other way around. And the proposal that's put in front of us is actually made out to Premier Properties. But I'm aware of property that sold across the street, that's zoned R3, that sold for $56,000 an acre. This is intensive industrial. I mean, how much higher can you go on land use? As far as your best use, it's high and dry. It's got water and sewer. It's got paved roads, plus. So, I'd like to I'd like to do the best that we can for the citizens when we do sell this. To be honest with you.
Yeah, well, we feel like we could supply, the county and the city with some great jobs.
There's no doubt about it. But the reason you're standing in Putnam County right now is because you can't do this for what you can do it for in Hillsborough County, Pasco County, any other county in Florida. We know what we're worth here. So I'm just saying, at the right time, I personally will take it personal if somebody comes in with a lowball offer. So I'm just putting you out there.
Okay, that's fine. To give you some color, I bought the 15 acres in southern Hillsborough County with the existing building on it for $2 million.
Mr. Pickens?
Yeah, I was expecting a presentation from Mr. Callahan, but I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate your interest in Putnam County. But, to just have that figure out of,
That's not Mr. Callahan.
no, I appreciate him coming. I was expecting a presentation from Mr. Callahan, but I'm glad that you are here, and I'm glad that you're interested in Putnam County to put a business here. Sounds like it'd be a great economic impact for Putnam County. But we don't even have an appraisal on the property, and I'm with the other commissioners that I'd like to be dealing with the end user of that. So, but I think there probably is a way for us to get together to maybe make this thing work.
Okay, Mr. Adams?
Yeah, I don't necessarily, if we're talking about negotiating, having so many jobs come in as a result of it, and you commit to that and commit to a certain size building, under an economic development plan, the price isn't as relevant to me, so I don't know that the appraisal is necessary under those confines, in my opinion. But definitely like that you're here and appreciate you being here in lieu of Mr. Callahan.
And I want to say this, and I told this to Mr. Callahan. Price isn't the selling point for me on everything, but I do want to know the market value of the land that we're dealing with. And then I do want to know the jobs that are being created. I do want to know what assets are going to be built on the property, so we would see what kind of tax. So I think you're at the wrong venue. I don't mean that ugly. I think that usually it comes through the chamber, through our economic development people, and they bring us an offer. But I want to know what that land's worth prior to me having it. And I told that to Mr. Callahan straight up. So there was no reason that he didn't understand what I said. Because I really tied the value of the land, the value of the jobs, the value of the assets that are coming in. And then this commissioner's ready to talk at that point. Mr. Turner?
In order to move this forward, I hate for Mr. Tippin to just waste his time coming
Right.
down here,
I know.
and the last thing I want to do is run off somebody from Putnam County. So is there some way that we could actually give the administrator and the attorney the ability to start negotiations with him. They can get an appraisal if y'all want, I'm all right with that, but maybe go ahead and start negotiations with him, because I don't want to see him leave. I appreciate the fact that he's standing here today and not in some other county doing this somewhere else. So, you know, if we've got to sell land that's appraised at 40 for 25 to get him here, I'm in. I'll tell you straight up, I'm in, because he's an end user, bringing jobs. That's what we own the land for. It'll get it back on the tax rolls. You know, there's just, see very little downside to this situation. So in order to move this forward, instead of just giving him another stumbling block, could we just give permission to the administrator and the attorney to start talking to him about how we can get this done? I'm with Jeff, or excuse me, Commissioner Rawls, I'm with him. We don't need to sell to an investor. That's not what we need to do, and then let the investor make money and sell to him. But if we can sell straight to the end user, then you got me on board with you. So I think that's the differences that we're saying here. So do you want a motion for this, guys? What do you want? Mr. Chairman, just a wave is all you need, Rich? Okay. Okay. Well, Terry's saying motion, he's saying I'm listening to the lawyer, Terry. Okay, so I'm waving.
But we are going to get some kind of a market value of the land, correct? Sure. Yeah, okay, good. I'm good.
But let them start negotiating,
let 'em
do what they want, let the
you good
man
with
make
that,
this
sir?
deal.
Okay, yeah, who do I talk to?
Those two gentlemen right there, Mr. Suggs will give you his card, and,
Yeah, I've got it.
okay, all right.
Okay, well, this commissioner would like to see this move forward. I understand there's been some confusion over this deal, that it's gone back and forth one way or the other. It's just confusion. What we did today should stop all confusion. Mr. Tipton should be able to go to you and find out what's going on, make his deal. Mr. Callahan should then say, okay, this is the deal, and he makes his deal with Mr. Callahan. They can close it all at the same time with the same lawyer to make everybody all happy.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to make sure we got our march orders, we're going to do that very thing. Mr. Commando and I will work directly with Mr. Tipton. So in between now and then, Mr. Tipton, if he would only communicate with the commissioner, myself and the attorney, we'll work on this project together and see where we can come up with a presentation for the board as soon as possible.
But I think you also heard that we want to know there's things we want to know, because that's going to affect the end game and the price of it. Mr. Adamzak?
Right.
What you just said is exactly what I was gonna say. So as long as it takes into account the jobs, the building you're gonna build, the equipment, all that kind of stuff, I think the property appraiser may have a role in some of that as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
all right,
sir.
thanks, guys.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks for coming
Welcome to
today.
Putnam County.
Yeah, thank you.
You're gonna
All right,
love it
any
here.
other general discussion? Commissioners on Port Authority item?
We need to talk about animal shelter on the Port Authority. I
Okay,
think.
Commissioner
We're
Ross?
getting to the point now where that property, I believe, that's still part of the Port Authority, right?
Yes,
Is that behind the fence?
I believe it is.
Yeah, okay. So we're getting to the point now where we've got as many details, I think, figured out, and we need to engage the services of a structural engineer and an architect. And I don't know how y'all want to do that.
Ms. Julianne, give us a procedure right there, real quick.
Architects and engineers are covered under the CCNA Act by the Florida statutes, so we would need to do an RFQ if you'd like to procure them independent of the project. Or if you, I know because you've made your intentions fairly well known, if you'd like to engage or you'd like to go down the design build process, now's the time to do that. Otherwise, what you're going to end up with, you're not going to want to go down the design build process after you've done an RFQ, because you're going to be redundant.
Well, we've already got the design work pretty much in the bag. Everybody's agreeing on everything, and the drawings are mostly complete.
So you just want an architect and engineer?
Yeah, we need to, and the ones that I work with, I have an architect that comes to my office every Wednesday and spends 8 hours over there, and we pay him an hourly rate. We have an agreement with a structural engineer. We do kind of the same thing. Sometimes he'll just give us a flat-out quote.
So in an RFQ, you're gonna procure services, you're gonna rank order without knowing a fee schedule. then your top rank firm or individual, you're going to enter negotiations with. Should negotiations fail, you would go to your second ranked firm. You're evaluating them based on their merit and value to the project, not on value. That's the whole premise of
How
an
do we do this
RFQ.
like we did the ferry?
The ferry didn't require an architect or engineer.
We require an engineer.
No, Mr. Travis, as a private citizen, engaged engineer, and there was no public building associated to the ferry.
I'm confused because we paid an engineer. They did load calculations on it.
Yeah, we agreed.
Yeah, we paid somebody to do
agreed
load
pay the engineer
calculations.
that Travis Roberts hired.
Right.
Some money, no.
So, and
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
asked Rich
$5
before,
grand,
he
not
knows
13.
of no other way to get around the CCNA Act. It's Florida statutes, we're bound to do it because it's a public project. So we would need to assemble an RFQ team who would evaluate the engineers and architects submitting the proposals and write us specifications, put it on the street.
So how do we get it done? We're to that point where
It's just that,
we're guessing without having the structural engineer that's going to sign and seal it. You know, there's 10 different ways to skin the cat. One to look at it one way, one to look at it another. So we've got to get that person to the table to finish out the finite details.
so I don't know how involved you'd like to be in the RFQ process. Remember, the decision comes back to the board for a decision. So I don't know that I wouldn't recommend you being in the evaluation committee. However, that's a recommendation. An RFQ evaluators typically are of odd numbers because you want a tiebreaker, 3, 5, 7, 9, that doesn't matter. The bigger the committee, the harder it is to organize. We would write a scope of services based on the needs that you have. We would write evaluation criteria based on what you're going to evaluate that architect engineer against for your particular project. And then we would do it just like every other procurement.
Okay. I don't know that it's in the county's best interest for me to be at the table, to be honest with you.
not.
Sure.
I think that's something y'all got to figure out. But this goes back to the conversations we've had in the past where this is a small-scale project, and, you know, we can increase the cost and put a bunch of burden on it that it doesn't need, but what I'm looking for is the most cost-efficient way to retain the services of an architect and engineer, knowing that 90% of the design work is complete. They're not going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting.
And all the information that we can give them in the specifications will assist them to render that decision. However, in public projects, they're still required to be licensed and insured and meet the metric of a public project. So,
Yeah.
and we're not going to know when we establish rank order what a fee schedule is for any of these individuals or their firms. But if you're ready to go, you can send us over the stuff and we'll get it drafted.
We need, you'll probably need to have, I probably need to help you write the scope of work. So
Sure.
we keep it limited. I mean, typically, the scopes are so broad, these guys are gonna come back
You
and
can
they're gonna
absolutely
bury you
assist
in
in writing
dollars
that document.
as the
Sure,
vacant, so.
absolutely.
Okay, all right, if we can get it screwed down real tight to where, we're looking for an architect to give us just the structural components and details. We don't need them to do a lot of drawing, and the same thing with the architect at that point, life safety, ADA compliance.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Turner?
Okay, so at one time, Commissioner, you were talking about maybe trying to do this project design build. Okay, so you're talking about helping them write design build documents to try to keep the scope close enough to where we don't blow this one up again? Okay, if this is Port Authority land, but the project's gonna be paid for out of BPP funds, at least to date, we have that money set aside for that. Is that gonna create an issue that we're using BPP funds to pay for Port Authority property?
I do
Please say
not
no.
believe so, but I will do some research on
Somebody
that.
needs to look, we
We've
may
had it
need to
set as-
swap
yep.
the money over to excuse me, we may need to swap the land over to the county, because I'm not sure if we can actually take BPP money and use it for Port Authority items.
We're using,
We're
we
using
pay
it
for
on
the
the jail now.
Pay for the jail. We're currently doing it. We don't have to have an answer this
There
second.
was actually a loan on the jail, so they're just pay, but they are paying the loan back from BPP, so I don't know. I think it's just something we need to try
I'll
to
validate
take a
it.
quick look at before we get off in it.
Yeah, the county attorney and I are here discussing it as you guys are talking, and we'll look into it, but I think there's an avenue to get there.
Mr. Rawls, you're good with that? They're going to sit down with them and help write that scope and move that. Now, let me ask you, I have a question. Do we have to engineer the dog kennels and all, or are we just talking building?
Everything. It's easy, it's just posted
Okay,
beam,
okay.
but yes.
But we're far enough along that we have a basis for design where everybody will be kind of sort of apples for apples here.
Correct.
That's all we were trying to
Yeah.
do, was try to get a basis for design.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Commissioner Rawls, for bringing that up. Is there any other general discussion amongst board members about Port Authority items? Seeing none, we're going to adjourn the Port Authority workshop, go back to our BOCC workshop. Again, we're going to go to public comments on non-agenda right now. So if there's anything that's not on the agenda, this is your time for miscellaneous conversation. And I think most people are here for something on the agenda. We're going to take public comments as we go. Okay. The BOCC workshop, our first item is our legal department discussion on proposed changes, Chapter 16, Article 3, 911 emergency addressing to Putnam County Code Ordinance. Who's got that? Mr. Commando, you got that?
I can. This was a topic that was brought up during your last meeting where there was discussion about the process in naming a road and public safety and the E911 coordinator's involvement and making that recommendation. Your ordinance does have a process, which I believe is copied for you as part of your packet today. And with that packet, you can see that there's an appeal process in place. However, based on the conversations that we talked about during the last meeting, this was something you wanted to discuss further in workshop.
Thank you. So Commissioners, this is the item basically that was instigated by, or not instigated, brought to our attention by Ms. Buckner about a situation. Ms. Thompson, why don't you go ahead and kind of let us know the process, and then we'll get into specifics, and then we'll probably come back to this again, okay?
Yes, sir. I'm Vanessa Thompson, the 911 coordinator. And when we received notice that there is a problem with a road, several roads, or whatever, we investigate to figure out what's going on and try and see if we can determine why it's happening. Sometimes it's nothing we can control, and sometimes it is. And in this instance, with the particular road that we're dealing with today, there were two within the same community, unincorporated Hawthorne, not too many miles away from each other. And they were McCall Road and McCall Street. And the first person to say something to me about it being a problem was the post office. But that's not the only opinion I used to determine what I did. We looked through all of the properties, talked with the communication, PSAP Communications, the Public Service Answering Point, where you dial 911 and get an answer. They said that they would agree that having the same road in the same community, just using road and street as a difference, does create a problem, and quite often it's after the fact with an emergency call that they find out it's a problem. And so we thought, okay, we're ahead of the game on this one because we know before something tragic has happened. So we went through and found I went through and looked at all of the points on the two roads. The number of addresses that would have to be changed is a large factor because that's, expense for everybody. And the road had over 20, I believe, and the street, I can't remember exactly, it was 6 or 7, something like that. So we made it determined that the change would need to happen with the smaller count of residents there. Not necessarily talking owners or anything. We're talking about the places that actually had a person in it, or a house there where somebody's living to be a change. And with that in mind, I looked at the other rules and guidelines for 911. And the way McCall Street is designed is, it was running east and west, and then there was a small jog that went north and south with no blockage of any kind. It's a contiguous road down to Gopher Ridge, where it went east-west again. And with 911 guidelines, it is recommended that any roads that run together like that should be called one name, not two. So between that rule and the fact that emergency services, or, you know, the call center was of the same opinion as myself, that it could be a hazard for 911 services trying to find the location. If someone mistook road for street and vice versa. And then I also asked a question after the fact, whether or not the communication center thought that MACCall, MACCALL, was any better than MCCall, MCCALL. And they said no. When it comes to answering a 911 call, that nobody thinks to ask exactly how that was spelled. The first thought they have is MC, because that's, you know, that's just the fastest and easiest thing. Now, if somebody that's in the emergency situation is cognizant enough to say, and that's MACCall, MAC, then, you know, wouldn't be a problem, but that doesn't happen. So to be real, MAC is the same as MC. So I, you know, decided that between the street guidelines for 911 and the smaller number of changes that would have to happen being on McCall Street, that was the one that would be changed.
So what happened, board members, is you all allowed me to meet with administration, Ms. Thompson and her boss, and sit down and talk about some of the issues we had. And we came up with a relative solution. And Ms. Thompson, do you want to explain what that was, or do you want me to do that?
I'm okay. We checked with the other road, McCall Road, to see what their opinion would be, see what they would like.
And may I insert, there was one landowner that owned a lot of the lots on that property. I think there was 4 different landowners on that whole street, but one owned the majority of the land.
Yes, and he had rentals on the majority of them.
Right.
So there were going to be changes for every one of them, but just one owner for that particular thing. And we do contact the owners when
Right.
it comes to changing information for their property. So we only got that one.
You contacted all the owners by certified mail?
Yes, yes, and I haven't gotten green cards back yet because I guess enough time hasn't gone by. You know, people are not, you know, waiting until the weekend, or Lord forbid it's a certified letter, I can't go get it, I don't want to. But anyway, we haven't received anyone else except for the one landowner, and he said that he did not want to change numbers. He would rather change the name of the street. I cannot approve the selection that he wanted because of rules with 911. But I am more than happy to give him some suggestions that he can pick from, or we can work together and come up with one. That did not happen with McCall Street because I already had Gopher Ridge to marry it up with.
So the bottom line here is we contacted the other road. We got the owner that has the most property, said he didn't care, he didn't want to change the numbers, he just wants to change the street. That would solve the problem for Ms. Buckner immediately, keeping her McCall Street separated like it was. So that's where we're at on this situation. We haven't delved into the whole ordinance yet, but board needs some direction here at this point. Mr. Turner.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, This ordinance has been around 18 years, and while there's no ordinance that you could write that would be perfect in every single situation that came up, no matter what it was, I think that this one's kind of done what it's supposed to do this time, especially seeing how you got in the middle and fixed it. If it works out that the other street's not upset about this, and so we don't have to change the ones that are upset about it, then it's kind of been fixed. We have the appeals process already built in it, don't we? Where they can come to us. Rich, isn't there an appeals process already in here?
There is, sir.
And so basically, I think this ordinance did exactly what it's supposed to do. And I think we just need to give thanks to you for getting in the middle and fixing this, finding a solution. So this commissioner says, I think everything worked out fine. If Vanessa can make, Vanessa, isn't it?
Yes.
If Vanessa can make this work out and they can keep their street and the other one doesn't really care, I say, good, let's move forward. I don't think there's any changes that have to be made other than what they're gonna do.
Wait. Mr. Adams,
I agree with almost everything you said. I think it worked
Really?
for the most part, yeah. The only thing I would say is if there was a way to word it where you ask both streets as part of the process, maybe, because that is where we had to go. That was the only thing that isn't in the process is that last step, to see if there's one that's just willing to do it, that may be helpful. That would be the only thing could see that we would change. But it sounds like once you described it, if you were here at that first meeting, I think we would have been like, wow, this is a pretty good process. And I really appreciate you going through that in the step-by-step manner you did. So I'm not for changing it. The only thing I could see is maybe tweaking that one thing that asks both roads if there's one that prefers to change.
Mr. Pickens. Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely need to ask the parties on both roads. And I don't want to get a long discussion. Do you have any idea how many roads in Putnam County that we have a situation with? Is there,
I don't know how many, but I would say probably half of them. And we don't go pursue the problems. I only tackle a situation when someone has reported to me that this problem is happening, it's happening more than once. And then we start looking into it to see if there's something we can do to correct it.
okay.
We don't search them out.
So, Ms. Thompson, what I'm hearing from Mr. Adams and it basically, is there a process where you could pick both roads and send out a letter to both of them and say, one of y'all got to change your name? You know, which one's going to have the least effect on, I mean, I don't know the answer. You tell me, you're the professional in this organization, you tell me, would that cause bigger problems for you, or could it be, or do we
It
just
would
need to look
definitely-
on it at a case-by-case basis and go, there's 8 people that own 15 lots, and there's 15 residents that own 15 lots? You know, maybe that's the scenario.
Looking at each situation is the best way to go.
Okay.
Because like in this one, it looked cut and dry.
Right.
And because I've used the 911 compliant guidelines, that helped make my decision.
I hear you.
If I hadn't had that to do, then I probably would have contacted both
Okay. So
and
what,
told them what the situation is and asked them, do they have a preference on how they would like, you know, I'd have spelled out exactly what I thought needed to be done, and they could tell me whether or not they would do it.
so what I'm hearing is you're going to now go back and ask the gentleman, you're not going to allow him to use the name he wants to use because it's his name. And we all know that we don't do that. So you're going to go back and give him options and then put McCall Street back as McCall Street. Or-
If that is what the board
I
recommends
think
and
that's
tells
what
me,
we pretty much
yes, I
have
will.
figured that's, yeah, we okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so by consent, everybody's shaking their head, so all 5 commissioners would like McCall Street to go back to McCall Street, okay?
And, Mr. Chair, did you
Yes,
have
sir.
public comment on this?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any people interested in public comment
Just
on
about
this?
it.
I'm going to,
Just about
yeah,
to.
I am. I just wanted to make sure that we got that cleaned up before we did that. Ms. Buckner, you've got a list, you're the first one that wanted to speak, so come on up and have a opportunity.
Yes, I'm speaking on, I'm Nancy Buckner from 114 McCall Street. I just want to address, I appreciate everything that was said, I do. But I want to clarify a few things. One, those of us who live on McCall Street were not contacted or given the opportunity to address the change of street. And I appreciate that we're told that it's going to be changed back, because this was a very emotional thing for all of us on the street. This was a very difficult thing. And the way that it's being explained today is not the way that it happened at all. And I am a very confrontational person, and I'm going to keep it nice, and I'm going to keep it respectful, because I am happy that we're going to get our street name back. And I guess I should just be thankful
Thank you, Ms. Buckner.
that that's what's being done, and
Thank
that's
you.
what I will
Thank
be
you
thankful.
very much. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for giving us our street back.
Okay. Mr. Bobby Wilson, I think you wanted to speak on this topic?
We are timing, right? We timing?
It's not going to be that long.
Yes,
You
I
can
do.
if
I'm
you
the
want.
property owner of the alley that she is talking about from McCall Street to Gopher Ridge. This is my property, okay? It's not a road. This road was put in there by an individual across my property.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, we're talking today about the naming of the road, not, the last time you were upset, Waste Pro was going through your property.
They
You
still
wanted-
are. They send in 2 trucks
Okay.
each week. I see no reason to send 2 garbage trucks across my property.
Okay, we're going to try to keep it on topic. The topic today is McCall Street, going back to McCall Street. That's what we're talking about.
What are
today.
we gonna do about my property that y'all are stealing?
We're not stealing anything, sir. We told you that the other day. but
So
we'll
what
get-
you're saying is I can go home and fence my property off.
If you own property, you can do what you want to do with it.
I own it.
I'm not telling you what to do.
I worked 63 years to buy it. Now, if y'all want it, you can buy it,
We don't want.
but that's the only way you're gonna get it.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Anybody else would like to speak about the name-changing ordinance that we just discussed? All right, hearing none, we'll move on. Ms. Thompson, thank you. You can get on to your daily activities. We appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is Putnam County SHIP Program update.
Good afternoon.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
It's been a long day.
I know.
So forgive my molasses. I was up at 5 a.m. to be here for the mornings, 9 a.m., so bear with me.
Well, I have lunch at 5 a.m., so we're good.
I'm working on that. For the record, my name is Antonio Jenkins. I'm with Guardian CRM. I am the SHIP program consultant here for Putnam County. I'm here today just to give a little bit of an update on the program progress. Generally, what we do is start with the accomplishments that we've made. I'm going to inverse that a little bit today so that everybody is aware that we still have work yet ahead of us. We've made tremendous progress, but that being said, we still have a lot of work to do. Some of the milestones that we have coming up, I'm just going to start with one that's not listed, and forgive me, I forgot to list it. Tomorrow, we have an AHAC meeting, an Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting, and we're going to be reviewing the state comments that we made, that we received from the 21 through 24 Local Housing Assistance Plan. So we'll be getting that tomorrow, getting those comments addressed, hopefully get that done relatively easy, get it back to the state, and then have it before the commission here sometime in the short future. Some of the other milestones is we need to develop the 2021 annual AHAC. Again, that's the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee report. That's due to Florida Housing by 12/31/21. So that's going to be a part of our AHAC meeting agenda tomorrow as well. We've also expended in full all of the fiscal year or the funding year 16-17 and 17-18 funding allocation. We're going to try to expend that by the end of the first quarter of 2022. We have developed, we're going to develop and submit the FY 16-17 and 17-18 closeout reports to Florida Housing by the end of the first quarter in 2022. We're going to also secure the release of the 18-19 1920, 2021 allocation by the end of the first quarter or the end of the first quarter, start of the second quarter in 2022. Now keep in mind, 2021 funds, I put that in there because it's just how the funding years fall, but all of those funds for 2021 were swept for everybody throughout the state. So nobody's gotten those, and we don't know if they're going to be released or they're going to be used for something else at some point. But if I get that information, I'll make sure we pass that along appropriately. And then we're also going to secure the release of the recently released 21-22 allocation at the end of the fourth quarter 2022. Again, I'm presenting this a little bit out of order. Doesn't quite make sense, but once we get to the program milestones that we've accomplished, it'll kind of work its way back around. But again, I just wanted to notice those things up front because we still have, again, quite a bit of work to do. For the commission, not so much for the public, and I apologize, I didn't print enough for everyone. We have the web links listed where you can find all of your allocation years and things of that nature. But I also have them listed below. For 18-19, we're looking to secure $350,000. For 19-20, we're looking to secure $350,000. Again, 2021 was swept for everyone. And then the recently released 21-22 funds, you're slated to receive $499,171. Moving on to the program milestones that we have accomplished.
Can you repeat 2021?
It is $499,171.
Was swept.
I mean, 21-22, apologize.
What does that mean?
It means that the state did not release those funds. This was during the height of the pandemic, and they hold those funds back for what their reasons were, I don't know. They just did not release them.
It means the governor and the legislature reappropriated that money. Instead of using it for ship and sale dollars, they put it out as COVID relief, and that was a lot of the rental assistance payments that we were able to distribute.
Okay,
So it just didn't come
we
through
should
that
not
way.
anticipate any revenue.
Yeah, for 2021, you should not anticipate any revenue for that. But for 21-22, again, that's the $499,171. Apologies.
And you have a light on your phone that's, just trying to break my eyes.
Thank you.
Some of the program milestones that we have accomplished are 14-15. A little bit of a backstory. Guardian and myself, we've been here since, I think it was mid-2019. We came into the program. There was a little bit of a log jam. We'll say it like that. And we had some outstanding funds from 14-15 to take care of. We have that closed out in the sum of $381,362. Again, that excludes program income because that can be malleable. It can flow between programs if we need it to. We fully expended those funds. Again, Guardian can't take full credit for that. The program consultant that was here before us did about 85% of that work. We just came in and fixed up some loose ends and got that closed out. So the state has approved that closed out, and those funds are completely expended. The 15-16 allocation of $374,562, again excluding program income, has been completely expended, and that report submitted to the state and closed out. What we're currently working on is the 16-17 allocation of $381,362, again excluding program income. That is fully encumbered, means that we have a household tied to each one of those dollars. And we are looking to currently close that out, again, by the end of the year, end of first quarter 2022 at the latest. 17-18 allocation of $483,015, again excluding program income, has been partially encumbered. It was fully encumbered, but we had an applicant who was tied to your CDBG program who passed away, so we could not attach those SHIP dollars that we pledged to that program there. And then we've had a couple of other applicants who just decided they didn't want to participate. They're either moving or they just somebody passed away, some other hardships. But those folks will be fully encumbered, again, within the next couple of weeks. We have interested applicants who are filling out applications as we speak. We've also completed the 2020 annual AHAC report. I think that was a surprise to most of us. It kind of got sprung on us, and we didn't realize that we needed to do that. But the AHAC committee, and Mr. Pickens can speak to that, we worked diligently to get that completed. We were supposed to meet quarterly. We ended up meeting every month until we got it done. We got that submitted to the state, and it has been approved. Again, the FY, the funding years 21 through 24 LHAP was developed, and we're going to be taking care of the state's comments tomorrow at the AHAC meeting. Some of the applicants that we've served, again, starting since 2019, mid-2019, took Guardian about 4 to 6 months to get everything reconciled and get the applicant list and things like that in order. From that time to now, we've completed 20 housing rehabilitation projects. We have 3 projects that are currently under construction. Had a little bit of an issue with one of those today, but we'll discuss that at a later time. I won't bore you with that today. That's a me issue. And then we have currently 9 projects that are currently out to bid, with those bids due on August 6th. And we have a queue of about 6 more people that are coming up for inspection and set for program eligibility here in the next couple of weeks. I didn't list those folks because if they fall out for whatever reason, I just want to provide you with the concretes that we had today. Again, all of those are housing rehab. We are looking into down payment assistance. We have had over the last year about 39 active individuals looking for down payment assistance. It's just for whatever reason during the heart of COVID, couldn't get them to work out. They could get pre-qualified for a loan, but it would not fall into a what we call an affordable housing situation. It would exceed 30% of their gross monthly income for their payments and things of that nature. So we're actively seeking those folks, and as soon as we get one who's eligible, we will process those just like we do housing rehab. But I won't be too long-winded. I could probably speak for another couple of hours, but I will stop it there and see if there are any questions or any comments or anything like that that I can answer.
Jenkins, I have a comment for you before I turn it over to the other commissioners. I really want to thank you for putting this out. I know you've had a struggle in the last few years cleaning up mistakes. When I read this report, I leap for joy, frankly, that somebody finally got this under control, and I know the committee's been working very hard. And so I just want to say thank you from myself to you and to the staff for making this a reality now and bringing this back together and cleaning it up. These people that apply for this money really need this money, and we need to be able to help them. And that's what it's designed for. So thank you very much. Commissioner Rawls, you had your light on?
Yep. I want to echo the thank you. This has been a really sore subject, as you very well know, with me since I got elected, and has been going on for a long time and needed to be addressed. Why would you not include the commission in conversation regarding the LHAP ahead of it publishing it and sending it to the state and have us take a look at it? Because at the end of the day, the commission's got to sign off on this thing. Why wouldn't we be brought in the process instead of saying, here, this is your LHAP, take a look at it, and then we look at it and,
This is the guidance that the state gave us. We had an audit previously before we started.
Mhm.
This is the guidance that the state gave us. Mr. Cheney with Florida Housing Finance said this is the best way to do it. Get it before the AHAC, get it developed, get it back to the state so they can make their comments, and then get it back to AHAC for correction of those comments, then back to the state to make sure that we've corrected those comments appropriately, and then recommend it to the commission.
So the question goes to, how do you know what our vision is or what direction we want to take housing assistance in Putnam County? What if we wanted to have more of a focus on trying to get critically needed trades like nurses and teachers and paramedics and sheriff's deputies or whatever living here? At what point would we have a seat at that table if the LHAP is already, because the last one that was written was poorly produced, there's no doubt about it. So how would we know before we put our names on it that this is what we want as a commission?
The standard process, here's what I'll say. I'll say it from my personal standpoint first. I don't mind bringing it before the commission at any point, but the standard process, again, as provided guidance through Florida Housing Finance, is to bring it before the AHAC, and the AHAC brings in that community vision and need, and they structure the AHAC to that. That's their function as it relates to the LHAP. But I do understand what you're saying, and it's probably a good idea, although it's not a very common practice. Believe it or not, it's not a common practice that maybe we should have preliminary conversations with the BOCC, and then take it before AHAC for full development at that point.
My experience has been in other counties, this is seen as a necessary evil, and they just want to get it done.
Correct.
But in Putnam County, this is a necessity, and I think that we can do it in a more meaningful way where we actually address the needs of the public and, but not just.
Agreed.
A
The more
bunch of
efficient and
boilerplate,
the more
basically.
input,
Yeah.
because it is here to serve the community, and, the commission has the ear of the community, so there are some changes, we can make those changes. Right now, we're in compliance with that LHAP submission, because we were kind of in a tight spot to get it there.
I got a feeling if I had never opened my mouth, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
We likely would have not, because it's just
But
standard
no,
practice.
But what
It's-
I'm saying is maybe we should have a workshop where we discuss this, and at the same time as everything else is going in. Do what?
Okay, wait. Okay. go ahead.
No, what I'm saying is basically have this as a workshop item that we can, come in, read the proposed LHAP ahead of time, and then be able to give any feedback before it gets published in some.
I actually think that's an excellent idea.
It is freezing in here.
Mr. Pickens?
And I do not disagree with that. I'll touch that base on that in a minute. But Antonio, I want to thank you and you and your staff because it was a log jam. It was a large log jam. And we have made great progress, but there's a lot of work still to be done. And as Chairman Harvey says, the people who apply for this money, they really need this money, and probably the only place they can get this type of money to help repair their homes. The state legislature last year decided that a commissioner should serve on this AHAC committee, so I'm that commissioner. That's the first time that has happened. And one thing that we've been able to do is we've been able to schedule where our committee is going to meet once a quarter, and this will be the third quarter. We'll meet tomorrow. So we're getting a unit together that is meeting regularly and wrapping their heads around the process of this, and we didn't have this before from what I understand. So that's a good thing. And I do believe when he told me about the process, about the LHAP and the other reports, it sounded a little backwards to me. But I do think maybe a update to the commission before we submit these or before we bring them to the committee is probably a good suggestion. So, but I commend you. I also want to commend Ms. Tia Atkins, who's not with the clerk's office anymore, for all the work that she's done over the years. And then I believe it's Ms. Cindy Trent.
Correct.
Now has taken that over and has just fallen right into place there. So the program is moving forward, a lot of work to do, but we are out of that little problem that we're going to get into as far as moving these monies forward, and I want to really thank you, and thank you for this report today.
Well, listen, I thank you all for allowing us to be here, first of all, and for the support, because without administrative support and without support from the commission, getting past that logjam would have been impossible.
It would have been terrible. Mr. Adams, that.
Yep. I agree with both commissioners on the idea of coming before us a little bit, but I just want to commend you personally. I watched a couple of your meetings. I've been to a couple of them as an audience member just to see how it works and to learn a little bit. And you're one of the most prepared people I've seen in a long time as far as running a meeting. And when there's questions that come about, you just have the answer. And if you don't have the answer, you follow up on that answer. And I've seen it across multiple meetings. So I just want to say I appreciate you. I mentioned my appreciation for you when we decided to renew Guardian. Had you not been the face, I may not have been a supporter of that. So I just want to let you know that, Mr. Jenkins, I really appreciate the work you've done. It benefits our community. For anyone that doesn't know what AHAC is, it benefits our community and basically being able to rehab some houses that really need help for people that really need help throughout our community. It's not just the Plaquemine, I think it's throughout Putnam County, and really appreciate what you're doing for our county and our community.
Thank you, I'm humbled.
Mr. Jenkins, while you have the floor and there's quite a bit of audience here and it's going to be it's being broadcast out, would you just kind of explain what the SHIP program does here for Putnam County and the residents thereof?
I sure will. The State Housing Initiative Partnership, or SHIP program, it's a program that assists the citizens countywide. You have to own a home or be looking for a home. The program can assist you with down payment assistance if you're searching for a home. Or it can come into your home, and if you're eligible, again, you have to be a resident of Putnam County. You have to be income eligible according to the HUD guidelines or state guidelines, because the state, again, getting a little bit of nerd territory here. HUD stops you at 80%, SHIP goes up to 140%. And there's certain expenditure regulations that we have to meet. But long story short, you apply through an application process. You can receive the applications from the main administrative building next door, or you can contact Guardian directly. Ms. Sarah Herbine, who's not here today, is also very active in helping with applications. So you can get those applications from the county. You can get them from my firm directly via
Mr.
email or
Jenkins?
mail.
Mr. Jenkins, if you'll speak into the
I'm
mic.
sorry, I was looking at I'm sorry.
Cameras up here.
The camera's
Gotcha.
up there.
But that's why I was facing that way.
You got a nice face. You can do that. So-
But the program, long story short, is to help you if you have any code or housing quality standard violations in your home. That's, anything from structural, your roof, your septic, your electrical, your plumbing, and things of that nature. The program can come in and assist you with the rehabilitation of those. I'll say this publicly, it is a rehabilitation program, not a remodel program. Sometimes that gets confused. Everything will be safe and everything will work appropriately to code and housing quality standards. When we leave, it may not necessarily be remodeled pretty. So we do our best to make it pretty and functional, but again, keeping you safe, making the home safe, taking it out of condition of whatever level of blight it may be in, is the ultimate goal of the program.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Let me
much.
just say one more thing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Ross. Yeah, you did a great job.
Wow.
I'll get him to give you a standing ovation. in just-
No, I'm good.
We're looking at a $1.2 million more dollars coming in. And this is where I was going earlier, is I would like to see us focus a portion of that money on new home purchases or existing home purchases for folks that may be looking to move into the county. We've got some really troubling times coming ahead of us right now. The price of real estate is going through the roof, and that's great if you're an investor. That's great if you're a homeowner looking to sell, but if you're coming in the workforce or you're looking to buy a house, times have changed over the past year, and the cost of housing is going to be extremely unbearable for a lot of young folks and new families and people looking to relocate to the area. So hopefully we can do something meaningful for them as we write the LHAP. And
I agree, and keep in mind, any of your active LHAPs, we can have a workshop for any of those. They can be changed at any time.
backwards.
You can go backwards. You can amend them. You can make technical revisions or amendments to those for activities or for funding, the level of funding for each activity. You can do that. We can go back and make those technical changes. Now, the state has to approve them, but that can be done. So if at any point in time the commission wants to have a LHAP review workshop or anything like that, I'm at your disposal. I'm just a call or an email away, and we can get that worked out if that's what the commission chooses.
Mr. Jenkins, I'm sure you work in other communities, but do you see other communities using some of their SHIP dollars the way Commissioner Rawls has suggested? And if so, maybe you could bring that idea back, because that seems to be a popular idea right now,
It is. Here's the thing about purchase assistance and down payment assistance. Again, 75% of all SHIP funds have to be tied to a home ownership construction activity. Down payment assistance doesn't always have a construction activity attached to it. I did bring before the AHAT quite a radical local housing assistance plan, LHAP, that was used in Martin County, where I developed a down payment assistance program where you would put a couple of $1,000s in escrow to be released upon an emergency on that home. That counts as a construction activity and was approved by the state. So that allows us to do quote-unquote regular down payment assistance and not have to go in and actually do physical construction and slow it down, and it will count as a construction activity. That's one of the ways that we can do a little bit more when it comes to down payment assistance and purchase assistance. And again, that's probably something, because we can get deep into the weeds on those things, that we maybe need to have
No,
a
we're good.
workshop with or something like that.
Yeah.
We're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Did you enjoy your day in Palaca? Antonio, did you enjoy your day in Palaca?
Listen, I'm a citizen of the flag today.
Have a safe trip back.
All right, next item on the agenda is our administration inspired technology proposal. Mr. Suggs, you got that?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposal that was requested by the board to have Inspire Technologies come in and talk to us a little bit about maybe some services that they could offer for our IT department. So we, as you know, administration reached out to these folks to do an audit sometime back, and they're here today to answer whatever questions, move forward through a proposal that they have sent. Whatever questions that you five may have today, we'll try to answer those, and if not, then we'll try to get a response as soon as we can.
Good. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good.
Craig Goodson, CEO of Inspire Technologies. We're headquartered out of Tallahassee, Florida. Made the trip over today to really, my head's on a swivel here, so we're willing to talk about the previous assessment and some of those findings and remediation activities, as well as answer any questions or give you a light description of what Inspire Technologies is all about and how we function in environments such as yours.
Okay.
So, description of us, maybe?
Why don't you give us a little back channel on the assessment that you did for us and then how where we're at today?
Sure. Typically, we come into an environment such as Putnam County, and we go through a whole litany of assessment activities. In this particular one, this was a fairly light assessment for us, where we were taking a look at basic compliance to NIST standards, and again, not getting too detailed into what some of those acronyms are, but just kind of following a best practices policy and comparing the county against what we see as industry standard and policies that we implement into organizations that we manage as well. So we took the approach of taking a look at your environment, looking at your staffing, looking at how the staff members are being utilized, and kind of looked through the lens of projects that were needing to be done, some gaps in a few areas of the compliance, and taking a light look at some of the security issues that potentially presented themselves in the time frame that we had to take a look at your environment. So we presented that presentation to the county administrator, provided that study to you guys, and it came out with a matrix of different recommendations, remediation steps, and what the applicability was from a compliance standpoint. In a county such as yours, where it appears that the IT department manages most constitutional officers as well as the Board of County Commissioners, there's different levels of compliance that you may have to adhere to. The BOCC in general is following more of a standards practice, whereas when we get into law enforcement, which is separate for you guys today, but we do manage that environment today in Putnam County, the clerk of court, you start touching CJIS and criminal justice data, and there's different levels of compliance that needs to be adhered to. We find in our scenarios where it's not always applicable, mainly from a cost standpoint, to force the entire environment to comply to such standards, but in environments such as your size, it's almost hard to manage those environments differently. So we typically recommend, pushing that compliance standard where it's applicable and affordable to do so across the board. So we looked at the study from that standpoint. We provided some recommendations and certainly could answer some questions, specifically if there was anything that you guys reviewed that, piqued your curiosity, or if you'd like me to try to go into more detail about that today.
Commissioners? Mr. Ross? Mr. Adams?
Good. You're the IT guy. Well,
So I guess, you said the word scope of work, and I really don't see a scope of work here. I see a statement of work which outlines very generic title and descriptions of what they do. I don't really see any goals. I don't see anything that would allow me to move forward and think that this was something there's no deliverables. Let's put it that way.
And we had discussed that as well. As far as a proposal to move forward, the statement of work or scope needs to be defined. With the lack of a statement of work or even a strategic vision from you guys as a commissioner body, what we basically put forth was staff augmentation to work with your existing staff members to help develop a strategic plan that seemed, unless it had been remediated since the time of our initial assessment, was lacking. A 1, 3, 5-year plan that gave some visioning from your guidance from an operational standpoint to the constitutional officers and letting that flow down into the operational IT groups. So Without that existence today, our offer to you was to augment in a consultative role the ability to define some of those things so that you could develop a high-level statement of work to really define and maybe help the existing IT staff and administration and management to either get some of these projects over the finish line, prioritize what some of those things are, or just generally help plug and fill gaps for what was one of the findings is a shortage of IT resources at their disposal. So whether that is through not filling positions or some level of folks leaving the environment, if there was a specific need, what we presented you in a couple different options is really more a menu of staff augmentation resources that could assist you in whatever flavor you felt was a priority. My recommendation, if you were asking that, would be to take the next step from the assessment and really kind of allow us to partner with you guys and the IT department to help identify that strategic plan, prioritize things at a must-have down to a nice-to-have, apply some level of budget resourcing and allocation to that to see what's applicable and what's attainable for us to actually get to quickly, and start plugging holes and getting you guys to a long-term plan.
And I agree with you there. I agree with that, the fact we have no SLA, we have no SLO, we have no established, agreed upon as a, we had an IT committee. Well, I guess we decided we didn't want to call it a committee because that allows people not to be able to communicate with each other anymore. So we had an IT meeting where we kind of was our first step at this to get all the stakeholders in a room and suggest what they felt was needed to augment our IT. And honestly, most of the feedback we got was process. It really wasn't that they feel the people are lacking or the skills lacking. It was process is the way I interpret it and the way I said it after the meeting and during the meeting. This doesn't identify process.
Sure. I think my best foot forward for you guys is the fact that your environment, while we are IT, we are a managed service IT provider, we manage and support various entities such as yourself, from law enforcement to constitutional officers to Board of County Commissioners. So the problems that you're seeing both in an IT, a security, and a process level are all things that we're uncovering and solving or managing those solutions today. And I think that puts us in a unique situation to help Putnam County, and we're already in market, local to you guys with other resources at hand. So I agree with you 100%. Today, that was a menu of staff augmentation off the state term contract position titles that could be utilized at your discretion. We tried to break it down into options that was a very light scenario where it's more CIO-centric and more administrative, strategic visioning. We've had some conversations, and I think through turnover, there may be a technical need to help shore up a spot or two that there may be an immediate routing switching need or something like that. We were giving you those menus of options to potentially take a look at and see if that met the needs that you had for today. If there is a need to kind of go back and define more of the statement of work or scope of services, then that's a conversation I welcome to have with whomever that would be and help us, help you guys define what the actual statement of work needs to be. I do think, based on the assessment that we've had and the limited knowledge I have in the environment today, is that there is a need for some strategic visioning so that you can determine the priorities of things that need to occur. And us working with your existing staff to help determine, help prioritize, and instead of just planning for it, actually pushing some of those projects forward is probably what our first step would be if we were to interact and do business with Putnam County.
And I'll do one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to other commissioners, and maybe I'll add something later. Specific to option 3, what do you see our staff looking like if we went with option 3?
Oh, option 3 is more of us just giving you a carte blanche of just about every IT position that would fit in this type of environment, measured against, during our assessment, the types of staff members you had, whether it's database related, systems administration, network support, help desk, whatever that would be. In our scenario, in option 3 is a very preliminary conversation for today. It would be in scenarios like this where we basically come in at that high level, help build the strategic plan, assess the resources and where they're adequately staffed and the right fit for whatever that vision is, they remain in place. And in many places that we go into, whether it's law enforcement or county, the option becomes yours whether, you know, that is something to stay as FTEs that are managed by the county with some strategic oversight from a company like us, or whether we blend further into a hybrid relationship where we're either adding more resources instead of you filling FTEs yourself, managing the existing staff that is here, or co-managing some of that staff, or taking a look and seeing if the opportunity exists for more of an overall role where Inspired Technologies would manage the entire staffing of that environment. Really, that's open for discussion with you guys. It's open to discussion with the resources themselves when it gets to that point. And if there's a natural fit that makes sense and everyone sees a good path forward for it, it's a conversation that we're willing to have. And we implement these things in just about all three of those areas today. Full outsourced, some level of hybrid, just strategic guidance. And it's really for
So
you guys.
you don't see option 3 as a full outsource, you see it as augmentation?
I see it could evolve
At
to.
the cost that that's quoted here is 1.7.
That would be pretty much full.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be us mirroring up your existing resources, or potentially, and this is very preliminary, but potentially converting them to our own resources if they met the needs and the requirements that were there.
That kind of plays into my biggest concern is without knowing what our requirements are, it's complete scope creep, right?
100%.
So there's no way for you to really quote it. I mean, we put you in a bad spot in a way because you really can't quote that because you don't know what the end objective is.
No, and I would lean far away from option 3. But that's not a scenario today. We don't know what we don't know, and I think that's applicable for many of us in the room today. I think it's for us to determine what the priorities are. Some of that has been done in the light assessment that we did. There's some things that we could pick out immediately. Strategic planning, disaster recovery, continuity of operations, security today, ensuring that we can recover from an attack of some sort at the county level is mission critical, number one. Once we have that, let's start getting into the planning phases of what's low-hanging fruit, what things can we do, we don't have to redefine the process is the one thing I did want to communicate today. We have that service level, that traditional SDLC, but for a managed services environment. We basically have that methodology in place today. We manage over 5,000 endpoints ourselves today. So it's really folding in a proven methodology that is basically measured to a CJIS compliance standard.
Other commissioners?
Mr. Turner?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ross.
I understand about 3/4 of what you just said, but that's okay. I'm gonna get simple with you now. All right, so you got 117,000, 236,000, and 1.725 million. It sounds like the 1.725 million, you come in, you take over everything.
That,
Yes or no question?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
does that include hardware?
No.
Okay, so then my concern kicks in that if something happens where we've hooked everything to one wagon and we're being dragged around by, and I promise you, your fees will never get less, it'll only escalate. So let's take a look at the two lower numbers. The 117, that's one individual, I assume?
As a mixture, one very senior resource and one analyst level to help create some of the document creation for strategic planning.
So is this full-time or part-time?
No, those are both limited resources. So the hours were included in the staff augmentation. If 2080 is a full-time, the fractional amount of hours that you see is about the number that we estimate.
Okay, and the same thing for the 236,000, how many employees would we share at that
So
point?
I think when you get into option 2, it still would require us to have some level of strategic planning with you guys to determine what the actual need is. I don't think that we could sit down with your IT staff today and 100% say, we're engaging in this or we're helping you with that. It's really taking in some of the assessment that we've done and prioritizing. Maybe some of these things have been corrected and remediated since we've been here, and identifying what the major issues are to start with protection and security, and then start peeling it back from there to get to whatever the next low-hanging fruit is. So what I would say to that option 2 is it's a matrix of things that you could dial up, not to exceed, you know, to handle certain things, but in the event that we got into some level of statement of work where it creeped way out, we would just come to you guys and talk honestly and fairly about what those things are for you to make a decision whether we were to proceed in any certain fashion.
Have you looked at any of our equipment any of our hardware that we have now?
We have.
What's your impression of that?
It's typical of a county of this size. It's not that the equipment's bad or it's been done poorly. We didn't see that at all. I think to your statement earlier, it's procedural. It's over time in these environments, and it's not even the staff members' fault. More tasks get piled over time. They start drowning in a circle of what's the most important thing to get done and who's asking for it. And then the next thing you know, it's a tidal wave of things falling on them. So they're trying to do the best they can do. I think the thing that I picked out of the assessment the most, which is maybe the most alarming, isn't necessarily the lack of a strategic plan. Let's boil it down to real things that need to be done. There are projects in your environment right now that I believe you have the equipment on site to do. You don't have the resourcing, whether that's time or skill set, to get it done. So what things can we help augment immediately to help roll out things like redundant connectivity throughout the county with your fiber? Significant fiber footprint that you have today.
Talked to you about 3 years. We've been talking about it.
Yeah, so what can we get done? What resources are needed for that? If you look at option 2, it may be less of the administrative and the CIO guy and more of the routing and switching and network guy. We're willing to dial those things up and present them in whatever fashion we come out with some statement of deliverables. Our issue is we're not a boutique shop where we send somebody over here for 20 hours. We're looking for long-term engagement with you guys, at least at a singular role, and try to forge a relationship with your existing IT staff, with you guys as an administration, and your constitutional officers today, so that we can basically help determine and strategically put you guys in the best foot forward. My last pitch on that is we're one of the only endorsed IT providers by the Florida Sheriff's Association and the Florida Association of Counties. So we've been vetted by a lot of counties, a lot of law enforcement, and we're probably the most audited body in the state of Florida from a CJIS standpoint. So we have a lot of, we've earned our chops in this environment. There's nothing that's going on in the environment that we've already seen that we can't help with. It's just a matter of figuring out a starting point that makes sense and is fair and equitable to everyone.
So I think part of my question goes to, is this a problem that the BOCC is created by not funding appropriately, or because we don't have the talent in county, we can't pull them in? Because the part of the solution is spending money.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we spend $117,000 or $1.7 million, it's spending money, and I think it would be a disservice to the current staff if we didn't give them the same opportunity. You know, if you set someone up for failure and then turn around and say, well, you failed, we're going to have to hire this company over here to come in and fix this because you didn't deliver,
Right.
But we didn't give them the opportunity to be able to deliver, is my point. So I personally don't know that I'm in a position to be able to have this conversation without seeing where we are with our current staff, with our current budget. We've yet to work that out.
Sure.
The answer may be that we just need to better fund our staffers and be able to pay people because if, you can't tell me what I get for $1.7 million as far as permanent 24/7 staff.
Oh, for sure. That's why I say option 3 is more of a throw it against the wall. You're seeing a smattering of offerings that we have today, and we do place those types of roles in many different environments. Some environments know exactly what they need. They just need a database guy. They ask us for it, we provide it. In your situation, one of the asks was kind of look at it from start to finish. What you see in there is a wide swath of the types of positions you have. The one thing I'll echo for all of you, because I'm in the same boat, I'm hiring in your environment. I'm trying to lure Putnam County IT resources to be able to work at a sheriff's office, at the city of Palatka, at Bradford County.
Stealing our employees, is that what you're saying?
I'm not stealing. I'm competing for the same resource.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's right.
And we are finding
Every
some,
sector's having that
and we
problem.
are having to recruit out of area to bring folks in. We're looking not to have a commuter, we're
So
looking
what
to.
I'm hearing is that we have really good employees.
Oh, yeah, that's what we think. So, if I was in your position today and I walked into the IT administration folks and I sat down with them today, the starting point isn't, how are you not getting this done and lack of ability. It's more about defining what the problem is, which we all are saying the same thing there. Is it process? Is it money? Is it lack of resource? And start plugging the holes and start getting on with it. We're an action company, so my pitch to you isn't one to come buy our services. Let's solve the problem, and we'll give you a cost to do that, but we'll have to determine at some point what the statement of work is to actually get that done. And we have experience in doing that, but we have to root in at least the top level and figure out what those things are. And it may be that your staff is perfectly adequate to get it done by getting projects off their list and getting things into a more manageable state with the help of defining a strategic plan and putting a methodology that works and makes them more efficient.
Yeah,
That may be the goal, and that may be the thing that we end up doing.
all good.
Mr. Turner?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk about some of this from a different angle. Are any of the money that these people would cost for one of these, would it be saved by or offset by certain things that we won't have to do? In other words, if someone attracted, whatever you want to call it, one of our employees, and that duty was done by this firm, that would be part of the existing budget. I guess the question that I'm trying to ask is this all on top of what we're paying now, completely on top? There's no offsets in there of anything that's being done right now?
The 1.7 is.
Well,
Not what I'm asking. I'm talking about probably the middle one. We don't have $1.7 million. That'd be $500,000 more than our entire payroll is right now for IT. So that's kind of preposterous. But the middle deal's a doable thing if we absolutely need it. But is there any of the money that'll be offset from current expenses that won't be there any longer? Or is it a total 200 and my computer died, so
36.
236. By the
808.
way, before I go on, Jacob, could you find me an iPad charger, please? There's one in my office if you can't find one anywhere else.
This is the problem with technology.
Yeah,
Paper still works.
yeah, well,
Julianne?
Yes, sir. I'm going to answer that in the same manner that they answered me when I asked that same question. So it's hard to determine or pinpoint an exact dollar amount that could be offset. However, they are familiar at a base level with our systems because they spent time here with both staff and looking in our department. And they do believe there's opportunity for some offset of dollars via either dollars that we already have built in for professional services and or dollars that would be saved from, if for lack of a better term, economies of scale. Obviously, they're doing it for someone else already and they don't have to reinvent the wheel or rebuy the product. It's something that we would be a shared services at that point. But they couldn't pinpoint a dollar amount unless they've worked magic since I received the information. And I can't pinpoint an exact dollar amount, but I do believe there would be some offset based on the questions and the answers that I got when I received the proposal.
basically at this time, the way it would be planned if we decided to do the item 2 or whatever it is, item 2, then it would be straight out of the general fund.
Well, it's obviously at the board's direction, but I think that if the board wants to engage in one of these contracts based on the unknowns that lie before us, my just pure budget recommendation is going to be to allow the general fund to only transfer in on a monthly basis what is needed to cover the net difference in any potential cost versus savings, if you follow that train of thought. So, on month 1, could we pay for the services? Sure, because it's an annual contract divided by 12. And then it would give us, at some point in that period of contractual relationship, we have some idea as to what's going to be needed. Regular dollars and reoccurring, they're going to be operational dollars no matter who's being the puppet behind the computer, and versus a situation where we know what they're going to provide to the table and what we don't need to buy.
If we started this contract and we decided that in a month or two or quarter or whatever, we didn't like it anymore, is there an out usually?
There is. Not only did we, somewhat discuss this with the Florida Association of Counties during the endorsement process, but in typically every one of our contracts, unless you have engaged in some level of licensing that we resell, Microsoft licensing, which can be separate from what we're doing, and there's no commitment costs, the services side of this alone, we provide 30-day outs. So typically when you're funded in the nature that you are and some of the state work that we do, there's always a nice little clause sitting right there at the very end of this that based on funding, you could get out of it anyway. So we basically are going to put our best foot forward with you guys. We're going to try to build a relationship, and we're going to let that be what tethers us to you. If you say that we're not getting that done, then the out clause would be for yours to execute. I would like to add that if I came into an environment like this, which I've done several of these over the course of my career, we can prioritize taking a look, which we did not have time to do in the original assessment, but we could take a look at all contracts, all licensing, all mechanisms that touch IT today, and start identifying where there are some economies of scale day one. Not to say that your staff hasn't done that and that they don't have a good idea of what that is. It may be the implementation of the thing that has to happen to take advantage of that. That's the problem. But if we were sent here to find an efficiency and an economical gain immediately, and that was the priority, then that's where we would shift the focuses of initially. Is there a better way to do disaster recovery? Is there a better way to do connectivity? Can we manage contracts to be better? And we're equipped to take a look at that, not only at a procedural and a technical level, but at a contract and an administrative level as well. So those are all things that we would certainly bring to the table and dial the tool set up based on what you guys say the priority needs to be.
What would be the chances, and I know this is gonna be a hard one to answer, what would be the chances if we decided to go, say, with option number 2, and we, for the 236, and then you come in 3 months from now and basically say, y'all need to choke up another $1 million to get us where we need to be, because basically I know that we're not at the top level of IT in the United States of America, but we need to try to do what we can afford to do, and so I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. That'd be a terrible situation to be in.
Right.
Have somebody tell you need a new Bentley.
All right. So, I mean, this isn't our first rodeo. We come into environments like this that have either been budget constrained, resource constrained over long periods of time. When we peel back some of these legacy environments that have 20 and 30 years of technology rolled into it, there's without a doubt you're going to walk in here, and if you marched your best IT person in here right now, they give you probably some dollar figures that would help solve problems, because there are products and there are things that probably can be implemented. Technology shifts, technology changes. We certainly are going to identify some of those, and they're going to go into the plan to a certain level, because some of them probably will be identified as full-on requirements that you really need to be doing. And it may already be that it's recommended, and maybe the impact of what not doing it hasn't been communicated correctly. But we also are really skilled at understanding we're in fixed budget environments where we can't just lump sum, pony up $1 million and start fixing things. So we're going to basically define a working list, and some level of priority is going to be assigned by all of us. Technically, we'll tell you what the most important things are, and for technical folks that can read that, they'll probably be able to pick up on that. Makes a lot of sense. But when we start getting outside of the low-hanging fruit of things that need to be done as an urgency, then we're going to start identifying priority and what things can be pushed to other budget years. Again, back to a 1, 3, or 5-year plan that can. You're not going to change your entire technology stack overnight. And we don't think that you can afford to do that overnight, nor are we advocating that would be the place to start. But you need to know what the long vision looks like and what the goals to get there will cost, so that you can start the capacity planning and the budgeting to get that to the fact that we can service our citizens and our constituents the way that we need to. So
I'm in. Where do we sign?
Mr. Adams at?
I need
So-
5 minutes or I'll just go with them.
Do you want us to take a break?
We're gonna take a 3-minute break. Thank you. Start finding their seats back. We're going to get started. We do appreciate your cooperation. It's been a long day, but we have a lot of different issues that we deal with. And where did this come from?
Somebody, Ashley brought it up.
Ashley.
Somebody wants to talk about what we're talking about now.
Come here, Ashley. They're not here. Oh, Rick Freeze from, this is the guy that was here this morning about the, no. But that's not his address. That's okay. All right, we're going to get restarted here. Mr. Adam Deck, you have the floor, sir.
And I apologize, I don't remember your name.
Craig.
Craig? I mean, I think the way we position this is it gives us a starting point to look
Sir,
at.
please step back. All right, this is going to get out of hand. Ministers in the audience, please calm them down if you would.
What are we doing?
We're not going to have that. We've got, that's just out of line and rude. I'm sorry. Excuse me. We're not going to have outbursts. We have a presentation being delivered right now. Please have respect for the process. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Adams?
So I mean, as someone who used to quote this type of services, this is the best case scenario for the person quoting it. You're basically trading dollars for hours with no requirements. And you kind of admitted to that. So, and I get it. You have to be able to measure and figure out, but really this is like paying for a live assessment in a way. So it's really you sitting here next to our people and doing an assessment, which we already paid you for an assessment, which granted it's a small scale assessment, whatever. But I went through the assessment that your guy presented and I really come up with, and the reason why I kind of was curious, and I said it in the meeting with your guy when we met privately with Mr. Suggs and that, the reason I would like to see a full scale, this is awesome, a full scale IT, like, so the option 3, the reason I'd like to see that, and based on real SLAs and real goals, and even fixing the things that you guys pointed out in the assessment, is because that gives us a comparison to what we're spending today, and allows us to actually make a decision of whether or not it's better for us to augment our staff, augment our hardware, and augment our facilities, rather than necessarily outsourcing. So, and I understand people don't want to tend to give you that quote. Well, I mean, you do because there's a chance we might buy it. I couldn't support this in the way it is today, only because there is no deliverables. So I hope that makes sense.
No, I think it makes complete sense. We role-played this too,
Right.
walking in here, and there isn't a true deliverable other than just attacking what we provided in the remediation plans of small level activities.
Right.
And whether it's Inspired Technologies or another vendor, your next step is to either have your staff produce that plan that someone can actually see more of those details and what needs to be done, which might be difficult to do, or have a third party come in and identify that statement of work so that they can give you a true bid without someone rooting in and shadowing and sitting in this environment and honestly meeting with you guys to understand what the vision for the county from an operational standpoint will look like. It's a very difficult thing to do, hence the staff augmentation approach of you just kind of dialing up the
And
resource.
it's a risky thing for us. So if we have your guys there shadowing our guys are going to feel intimidated potentially.
I don't disagree, and I understand even as listening to this, it can create concern, but I would challenge you to look at other counties that we've dealt with and how we handle those scenarios. We're not looking to come in here with a hatchet and start ripping resources. In fact, if every staff member is fully adequately resourced to do the job at hand, even with technology stack changes in the future, then it's a good place for a hybrid solution.
Your simple assessment already addressed what our technology stack changes are needed at a minimal basis. So how did that not get factored into this, I guess, in detailed? Because some of that information you knew. I guess that's where from your perspective, that's the part I am disappointed in, because you guys had information that if we did quote it out to several people, they wouldn't have had. So I would have expected there to be something we've all talked about. They asked for 100 has to go away once this maintenance contract, once this warranty period is up. You know, is that accommodated for in these hours, or planning for that? There's
think-
things that are known. We know that our switching systems are end of service life. There's things that you guys know because you did the assessment. And none of that is accommodated for, or at least if it is, maybe it was when you did the numbers and came up with hours. But to me, this is just the pool of hours to be utilized however who sees fit. We're not going to meet every month to say, hey, as a commission, let's put hours here. So is it the IT director? Is it staff? There's just a lot of ambiguity with it, in my opinion.
I don't disagree, but I think the issue that you have is if you're looking for a path forward from today to something else, there has to be a commissioned, whether it's a third-party resource or your existing IT staff has to produce a plan. And I don't think it was necessarily our role or our intent in the stuff that we put forward for your viewing today to say that
Right.
these positions would go and there would be a cost savings of X by doing it. That's not what we're looking at. In fact, we identified a shortage of resource in your environment based on the technology that presents itself today. What we were looking to do is, while it may be a one-off increased cost in a short term, ideally within the year, maybe within months, for us to get in, identify, become a strategic partner that you understand that we're not looking for scope creep. We're actually looking to narrow down to a scope. We actually enjoy managing ourselves against a service level agreement that can be used in a metric, format. So we would be looking to help define that scope as quickly as possible. I'm trying to sell you something that's mythical. I'm trying to get to a point where I can actually task my resources and lay in the right people to get the job done.
And I guess my next question would be, let's say we went forward with option 2 or option 1, or let's say we did something. What is your process when we decide, let's say, to do option 2, and I think there's 4 different resources that you would assign to it? What does that process look like from your company's perspective? You come in and do you?
Well, basically, we would identify the management staff that we've already dealt with, interviewed, and talked to from an IT perspective. Probably sit down a little bit more with administration and identify other issues, because in your particular case, while there is the BOCC at the forefront of this, there's constitutional needs that are very specific, from supervisor of elections to clerk of court to there's some other things to factor in that we just didn't have time in the assessment previously. We'd probably get the stakeholders involved to identify what we think some of those priority issues that we've already uncovered are, and identify anything that maybe was lurking underneath the surface that we didn't actually touch in the assessment, and identify what those are. What I have heard, merely hearsay, is that there is a network need of something getting resolved fairly quickly, and you have the ability and the equipment potentially to do that. So low-hanging fruit, things like that, we can dial up the technical resource and maybe provide some minimal scope of those projects so that you can have information to approve and understand where the hours are going to. Beyond the first 2-3 months of getting on the ground and understanding and developing a working plan, I think communication is going to be the piece that remedies your concerns. How quickly can we generate something tangible for you to understand what the planning and the activities are going toward? Whether that actually identifies cost savings or not, I couldn't tell you that, for sure day one, but the process would be for us to kind of root down with your team, start identifying major issues first, and then start applying those into a strategic plan that you guys would have the ultimate ratification of. So, is that information security issues? Is it technology issues that we need that you're exposed today? Maybe not. Maybe we can focus on process and procedural things and methodology, but it may be that we're just a ticking issue away from there being a very severe problem and someone else standing at the podium telling you what that is in arrears.
So I do want to say, I do appreciate your candor and honesty with this. A lot of IT companies wouldn't be quite as open with the answers that you've given me. So I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what you're saying. I just think that if we put $300,000 towards our staff, with what we pay, that's between 4 and 8 people. 4 and 8 people basically is a 30 to 50% increase in staff, that if we got the right people, we might be able to just do the work. So that's where my balancing act is when it comes to this, is the numbers. There's profit margin in your numbers. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff like that. I mean,
for sure. Well, take into account that day one, while I wish that resource was sitting right here to be the network architect and we could bring him in and do things, he's coming from somewhere else, or she's coming from somewhere else. So in the interim fashion, we're relocating resources in to get this job done in whatever fashion or temporary scope that we have is. If you had $300,000, and I'm just being transparent about it, but if you had $300,000 to throw at the issue, hiring is going to be the number one issue, finding that resource that actually can influence change. So if that exists, I would say that's what you probably should already be doing. If it doesn't exist and you're looking for that skill set somewhere else to come in and be a quicker fix, then that's what we're presenting to you guys. No ramp up to learn the environment. We already understand most of this environment. You're not doing anything. AS400s and mainframe systems, unfortunately, we've got a lot of a lot of experience in legacy transition and migration of those things. They're not for the weak of heart. And if you're hiring network people, they don't necessarily understand the application layer. I know you know this stuff, but they may not know the legacy of what the end goal piece of this is going to be and how things were done to get to where they're at today.
The final thing I'll say is part of what we did in the first IT meeting was we were trying to establish what an end goal would look like. And we only facilitated getting feedback. We didn't facilitate an end goal. And the other half is so in case if we do hire you or we bring you in the future, is it's not just like what I said before, it's also expectations. We need to set better expectations with the users, with the end users, with the customer.
For sure.
Our internal customer. And that we don't have that today either. And that was pointed out by the constitutionals, by our directors that were in the room. And so I appreciate your time.
And whether you utilized our exact methodology, applications, and how we manage our service end user support,
Yep.
you still would take the process and the procedures of what we utilize today that is proven successful, and we find a way for you to implement them into your environment. So those are the kind of
I
things.
understand. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pickens, then Mr. Rawls.
Yeah,
and
thank you, Chairman Harvey. I appreciate your presentation because to me, it's not a sales pitch, it's a solution pitch. Okay, and I say that in the right way. But I do think, and actually, Charles Overturf made the comment about this to us, or to me, is that I'm not sure at this particular point, it doesn't need to go back to the IT group for them to look at this, and I don't know if they've seen this or not, to look at this, and then, because they're representatives, I say, from all types of government, constitutional officers, stuff like that on this committee, I'm not exactly sure who's on there, come back and get back together and come back and maybe make a recommendation or get the scope of work of what needs to be done, so maybe you can better define what your services actually can be and a cost on it. We can choose which one, if I'm following this long conversation
Commissioner,
the right
the
way.
one thing I would bring up to the point is we present the staff augmentation roles because they're an approved procurement mechanism for you guys to potentially utilize. If you're going to develop scope in a non-staff augmentation role, develop the scope, give it to us to bid on, and we'll present bids to come in and do the things, but that's a whole nother process someone's got to manage. And the opportunity for staff augmentation kind of sidesteps the need for putting another thing on your internal staff. Maybe you take it to them and they say they got time to do it, but building out an RFP to develop scope is exactly what we're talking about doing. So your options are to contract that out to someone in a different manner that procurement-wise you can handle today, or your internal staff has to be able to put that together, and I don't know what the timeliness of that would be for you guys. So if there is a sales pitch in it, it's the ease of procurement, whether it's Inspired or other staff augmentation companies on state term or GSA contract services.
So you're not recommending taking it back to the IT, they're the ones,
Oh, no.
they're the ones actually using it.
If we were selected to help you guys, I want to work with your IT department hand in hand. It starts with them. We don't understand every legacy situation and all the institutional knowledge that's in their heads today. They're the most valuable piece of this. So understanding what that is, getting determinations from them on what they think needs to be done, and laying that in with an eye toward what other products are out there today to make this more efficient is exactly where we would start. All I'm cautioning everyone on today is that there's a potential more priority need than the future of getting to a better technology to make us more efficient. There might actually be technical things to solve almost immediately day one. I don't know that that's the case across the board, but I can say in what we consider your layer 2, layer 3 network, switching and routing, there are things that probably need to be done, and we need to allocate some time and resource to do that, and that's why we gave you the option 2 menu to kind of dial up those resources as you see fit. No, we work with your staff. I would welcome just being in the room with them and trying to identify what the path forward from a hybrid standpoint would look like.
Okay.
Commissioner Ross?
I like a little bit of what I hear, and I like some that I don't hear. I don't like some of what I hear. I think without giving staff definitive direction from the commission, it's unfair to them. I think that it would be unfair to bring a group in and let you guys muddle around and figure out what the definition of it is if we haven't given the definition of it to our staff and direction to do that. So, you mentioned.
Mr. Rawls is
Huh?
talking, please.
Oh.
Go ahead.
You mentioned the AS400 transition. Are you intimating that that should happen in the future, or?
I wouldn't know today. I mean,
Okay.
we just got through doing a large mainframe migration to something more current and cloud hosted, and it's not for the weak of heart. It's understanding all the business line applications that are hosted by the AS400 and taking into account what will it take to recreate those services in a more current software platform, whether it's hosted here or hosted in the cloud. Those assessment things need to be done, which can be done by your staff today, but it needs to be brought forward quickly, and you got to get out and start shopping what the potential options are for those things. But, you know, today
I personally would think that's where we would need the hybrid situation where we have heavy hitters from the outside that have experienced this. But I've also heard staff say that we need to be looking at migrating away, going cloud-based and becoming more self-sufficient and less dependent upon old technology, because it's going to go away one day.
We're certainly proponents for the cloud migration, but it has to be where it makes sense. And
Right.
there is a need, law enforcement, county, certain constitutionals, there's a need for some things to be on premise, and we weigh that into the risk-reward factor of what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Turner?
Okay,
No, ma'am. Ma'am?
I have to get to the airport, and
Ma'am.
I'm not going to listen to
No, ma'am.
what are we doing?
I'm just going to set it here. I can't use my time now.
I'm sorry.
So if I
we-
could leave this here and one of my friends could read it, please. I have to go. I wrote this. I have to go. I'm going to leave it here. Thank you.
I can't do it.
We have got to have order here. Thank you. Mr. Turner, you have the floor, sir. Mr. Turner, you have the floor. Mr. Turner, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If, the way I'm looking at this is, it's $19,600 plus a month, and we can get out of it at any time on 30 days. So why wouldn't we go ahead and hire these people for a couple of months, see how it works out? We got to do something, guys.
I agree,
What we got
but
now ain't
But
working.
who's going to give them direction? Is he going to come in and say, this is a direction I want your county to go, or are we going to give someone direction?
Well, I think the first thing they need to do, this is a great discussion, the first thing we need to do is we need to let them come in and find out what's going on and sit down and talk to us, just like they are right now in a workshop, and say, this is what I think, this is, if you don't think this, fine. We're out a couple of months and we terminate it and move on, and that nobody's any better, any worse off. But at least we find out what's happening. Right now, I'm sorry. If it makes people mad, I'm sorry. It's not working. What Putnam County has right now is not working. We need a plan.
Would you concede that
We
we
need a
could?
strategic plan. We need to start moving it in that direction. And I don't think putting $300,000 or $236,000 towards hiring more people is the answer either, because I don't think you can hire the people. Right? If it's like in any other business out there on the street right now, people are standing in line. I mean, there's no people for the jobs that are available out there now. We all know that. It doesn't matter if
Yeah,
you're
you're right.
sweeping floors or a computer expert. So I think the only way that we're going to get this moving in the direction, in my opinion, is to go ahead and figure out a way to hire these guys. Let's do the middle contract. Let them come in here and start looking at what they need to look at. And if in a couple of months or 3 months or so that they haven't, hell, if they ain't just fixed the fiber loop. We've been trying to fix the fiber loop around here 3 years. Are you kidding me? Maybe they could just come in and figure out a way to get that done and get the fiber loop
I
fixed
can get
and
on
things
board
like
with that.
And
I can get on board if we can have a presentation from staff and let us hear from our own staff right now, because they may already have the problems laid out.
From
We just
who,
haven't-
IT staff or IT bosses?
IT staff, IT bosses, all of them. Let them come up with a report We've never asked them. I've never heard, I mean, we heard from them when they made their budget presentation, and they said, we need more people, we need more money. It's the same thing he's saying.
But we can't, but we can't get more people. That's my whole point
Right.
here.
We may have to have temporaries, you're right.
Pardon
We may
me?
have to use temporaries, you're right. We may have to have a
I guess
hybrid
my point
solution.
is, I think we've got to have a starting spot somewhere. And we had an audit, and the audit showed flaws. Okay, I'm good. But then we try to come up with a solution. This is $236,000 a year if we keep them for the whole year. But if we don't think they're doing anything in a couple of 3 months, we go in there and say, sorry, you ain't doing nothing, you're out of here, and we tried.
Right.
I don't, just sitting here and putting this off and kicking this can down the road is gonna get us in trouble.
I'm
And
just not sure.
I'm
I
not
don't-
trying to bring
I don't
up
know what the
for
urgency
instances.
is. I've not heard a report from anybody that says this is what is wrong with our IT right now.
Well, and I don't know that you're gonna until we bring somebody in that's outside the family, because some people around here are scared to say anything for fear of retribution. Now, that's just the way it is.
That's a good point.
But, you know, not just as the fiber loop broke, we spent $125,000 2 years ago on some software over there at the building department,
Still ain't been
and they're
hooked up?
waiting on IT. I'm not saying for just a reason or not. They're waiting on IT to come in here and fix the damn software. I'm sorry, that's unacceptable to this commission.
Agree.
So I think we need to do something to move this forward. And so this commissioner wants to get these guys on staff as quickly as we can for the middle option and let them try it for the first couple to 3 months. And if they're not moving in a direction that suits administration, then fine, we'll run them off. I guarantee you they got a lot more to lose than we do, because FAC and all them people, last thing they ever want to hear is why did Putnam County run these guys off? You know, so.
Can we continue this at our next workshop? Just put this in the back after transportation, continue this and
We good with that?
head and, I think,
Mr. Adamczak has
I think we
a-
ought to do that.
He's next. and
The
then
one
we'll-
flaw with the 19,000 something per month is each 420-hour segment is only 14% of a person. So you're gonna use a lot of that up, because the initial part is gonna be a lot of the effort is up front. So you're gonna be, if you're just talking about 420 hours across 4 resources, and it would take all 4 of those resources potentially.
Well, that's what
You're
he
talking about basically
what he
destroying
said,
those hours in the first couple months, 2 to 3
That's
months.
what he said. We
And
could
then
get
you're
out
at the
of
point where you
it.
spent the $200-some-thousand at the 3-month point where you decide you didn't like what they.
he said. What
Well,
he
I
said
don't
was
think
we
that
could
day
get out.
one, I don't think that day one we can determine that there's 480 hours for a network engineer or architect to do. I think very quickly we get here and we determine what those resources needed to be within those 4 potentially, or more if we needed a wider set of resources, and it may be less matrix hours, or it may be dumping some of those hours into other buckets. It's more of an overall purchase order type situation, and dial up the resources as you guys see fit.
I actually see
The
that.
one other thing that you had said is you ran out of time in the prior assessment. Is that out of time because of the number of hours we purchased, or did you run out of time because we gave you some sort of constraint on how long it would take you to do the assessment?
It wasn't just time. There was a tentative budget in play to get as much as you could get done in a fairly minimal contract cost. So we hit what we thought were the highest ticket items to get through in this environment. But, I mean, in comparison, I mean, we're doing $150,000 and $175,000 audits of environments this size. So, you know, if you want to go down that path and determine with great detail exactly what needs to be done with recommendations, that would be a different conversation. Different from what the initial assessment was. It was very light.
All right, we're going to wrap
Can I
this
ask
up.
one more question real quick?
I think
Do you
I
pay
asked-
your, what, do
Wait
you
a
pay,
minute,
oh, I'm sorry.
He had this
I'm
finger
sorry.
up. Mr. Turner?
Go ahead.
Okay, so basically, if I'm understanding correctly, you would come in here and start the process, and within the next 60 to 90 days or 30 days or whatever it is, as y'all identified areas that needed tweaking and working on and expanding or whatever they may be, then we would be able to have a closer, accurate count of how many hours it was gonna take for what, and we could probably get a report from him at that time. This is kinda how we're gonna move forward. Right now, they're guessing. That's like,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they're guessing. Well, that's what I'm saying. Go ahead and start the process.
But that's an
Let 'em come
assessment.
in and look.
You've got to give them the direction.
But that's an assessment, and we're
Right.
having them come in if we did this today with no objective.
But
Right.
we're
The objective is
asking
to
them
what?
come assess, look at what we have and make that assessment and tell them what to do. Somebody's got to do it.
Okay.
Can I get you to send me an email that breaks out the positions that you would have working with us in the
That's in
scenario,
here.
and then what their rates of pay are?
That's in.
It's
it's
in the
here, so I
proposal.
did-
Is it in?
Okay,
there?
what's the pleasure of the board?
See it.
I think we ought to push it to discuss it for the last time at our transportation meeting,
Okay.
at the end of it. I don't see any harm, it's just a week,
Is
couple
all the-
weeks.
Everybody in consensus with that?
To give people time to, are you available for us to ask questions?
Table this item to the next workshop.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know the date, but I'll have to just check, but I'll try to make myself as available as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for a presentation.
Yeah,
and-
sorry about the time.
No, it's not your fault.
you're fine.
Thank you very much.
I just want to, Larry, I have one other comment
Yes, sir.
about us. So when we started to do the IT meeting,
Please, folks, please.
when we started to do the IT meeting and Sarah sent it out as the idea of being a committee, there was some concerns expressed that if, let's say, 3 or 4 of the constitutionals become part of a committee, that we'd have sunshine issues. So if the IT director was, that's why we chose to just do it as a meeting. So we didn't come to so we're just doing it as a meeting, just for full
yeah.
disclosure. So my intention was to talk about that today, and then this came onto our agenda, so there's no reason for me to talk about it in that manner. But I just want to share that with you. That's why we didn't form an official committee, is because we felt it would be intrusive to the ability of the constitutionals and the rest of us to do the day-to-day work of IT for the county.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. We're going to
That true?
finish.
Can they not have a committee if 2 commissioners aren't on it?
No, the issue is if 2 constitutionals were on it and they were on the committee, they could no longer talk to each other about
I
IT
don't know
needs.
that's true. I see them eating lunch all the time.
Yeah, that's not the issue. The issue is as delegated authority from the commission, they're subject to sunshine.
Right.
So if just the constitutionals feel like meeting with a commissioner, that's entirely up to them.
Sunshine. I apologize, I left that word out of it.
Okay. Good. All right, we're going to move that to the next one and finish that conversation. The next item, item D, Legal Department, Veterans Memorial Protection. Mr. Commando, do you want to read the ordinance by the title?
Well, we're just discussing it. You had asked for an ordinance, so this is just conversation. We're not passing it today.
Okay. Mr. Rawls, do you want to,
You want me to read it?
any comments you want to make?
I've reviewed the ordinance. I think it's well-written. I think it needs to be put into place, and, this is,
this really doesn't look good. We're trying to do something here. We're going to listen to everybody here. We ask that you be respectful. Mr. Rawls, continue, please.
I was opposed to the decision that the board made, obviously, when the decision was made to move the monument. I thought that the citizens should have the opportunity to vote on it collectively. But as a veteran of this county, I think that we owe it to the veterans of Putnam County to be able to put into effect this ordinance, to be able to protect all paintings, all murals, all monuments, all whatever we have that are paying homage to veterans. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have something like this.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the board right now? Mr. Adamczak?
So I was hoping that the ordinance actually would go a little bit further, and that, I guess we started off the last time we talked about it being a veterans ordinance, and then I felt like we got to a point where we talked about a historical ordinance, I guess, or to cover maybe things like Asa Phillips and other monuments that would be other things that we could protect as well, from the idea that something, whether they vandalize it or something happens. We got Bartram, we have a history with Asa Phillips Randolph and Long Station. Private First Class Jenkins obviously would be covered by this particular one. But these other instances of great people that came from this county or had effect on this county aren't covered by this ordinance. And maybe we'd do a separate thing on it, or maybe they're already protected, but I just would like to see something that was a little more far wider scope, if that's
So,
possible.
Mr. Commando, could we go to a wider scope on historical, include Bartram and things in that nature also?
You can make a motion to amend however you see fit.
Okay. Well, I'm not opposed to that. I think that's the conversation that when we did talk about the things that are important to Putnam County, and historical is one of them. And it wasn't just about a monument, it was about a lot of things that go on in Putnam County, and including Private Jenkins' signs, including murals. So, yeah, I think I would be entertaining to see more historical put together on that. So I'm fine with
There's a
that.
section where it refers to presidents, and it could just go right underneath that.
Okay. All right.
And maybe would it be like people of note or recognition? I mean, obviously, if they have a memorial or they have a street named after them, they're obviously of note. So is there a way just to make it fairly generic of noteworthy individuals or something like that, Rich? Or is that they're determined noteworthy because they're already recognized by having a monument or a road named after them? So, and I'm thinking along the lines of it's been suggested by myself in a prior meeting about maybe a sports hall of fame or something to that effect. So let's say we put a statue of Terrell Hill out there because he's a recognized person who was a football player in college and did a lot of things and does a lot of things for our community. We wouldn't want someone to come in and do something to that or just anything, right? There's, we have.
You can set whatever criteria you feel is important.
But do you recommend it be generic or very specific, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, the ordinance that's presented to you today is fairly broad. You can broaden it further or you can restrict it.
Okay. And how would we go about that? Because today we're just here to discuss it, right? We're not here to make it happen.
Include whichever categories you want to add to the ordinance.
Can you make some recommended language?
So,
Well, right now we were focused on veterans because that was kind of the conversation before. You can do veterans, historical figures. I mean, you'd have to define notable figures. You can do that in the definitions. Again, I think that's kind of.
could it be as simple as people that have been recognized within the county on county property? I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Whether it's the prior commissioners that are on the outside mural, the outside plaque on this building, or it's, Tim Smith on the building over there, whatever it is. Could it be something that's anyone that was recognized by the county on county property? Could it be that generic?
Could be. I mean,
That gives, sorry.
The more you broaden it, the more people it'll encompass or the more objects it'll encompass.
And that gives future boards the option of whatever they end up doing if they ever decide to put up another monument for someone else or do anything like that, that all those would be covered as well, is my thought process. And that's just sharing with the board. That wasn't for you. All right, thank you.
All right, good. Any other commissioner comments before we go to public comment? All right, I do have a request. There was a lady from the airport. She had to leave, and I apologize for that. We tried to get to her. Ms. Kitchens, you have a previous engagement too, so I'm going to call on you, and then we're going to go to the cards. Ashley, you got cards?
3
for me?
minutes.
Okay.
Only 3 minutes.
Yes, we're going to keep our comments. We have a history here. This is not to block your voice. We ask that you speak for 3 minutes. We don't open a trap door and you fall out of it. There's nothing like that's going to happen. But we do ask you to speak for 3 minutes. If you can't wrap up, we do ask you to try to hurry up as quick as possible. So Ms. Kitchens, you're well aware of this. You've done this before. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, and I timed this. Winston Churchill said, "Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. If we remove the monuments representing our history, there will be nothing to educate future generations about our history, and they will be doomed to repeat it." In our country today, we have individuals following the Marxist handbook for communists, demanding removal and destruction of all of our historic monuments, including our military veterans, founding fathers, and even Jesus Christ. Their purpose is to destroy any reminder of the Western civilization that gave rise to what is still the greatest nation in the history of the world, the United States. You can only learn from history if you have reminders of it. Therefore, this ordinance to protect our veterans' monuments, memorials, and plaques is an important step for you to take to preserve our history for the education of future generations. Those who think the Confederate monument celebrates slavery, Jim Crow, and other repressions of black people should want it to stay so that future generations will know what happened to blacks and make sure that it never happens again, or it's never repeated. If you are for the Confederate monument because it honors those from Putnam County who fought for the South during the Civil War, then that monument needs to stay there to remind future generations of that bloody period of American history and serve as a reminder that we must never again let ourselves get to the point where we have another Civil War. In 1869, every citizen of the Confederacy, including the soldiers, was pardoned and restored to full United States citizenship with all of its privileges. In the early 1900s, Confederate veterans were given equal status to the veterans of all of our wars, including the right to be buried in Arlington and other national cemeteries. The Confederate soldiers from Putnam County deserve no less honor than the soldiers from Putnam County who fought in our other wars. Therefore, you need to pass this ordinance protecting all of our military monuments and other public displays honoring our veterans. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Kitchens. Thank you, Ashley, appreciate it. This is going to be in no order here, okay? Sean Morrison.
First off, I would like to commend this commission. I live in neighboring St. Johns County, and I live in neighboring St. Johns County, and I've watched this happen to my own county, and I'd like to commend all of you for at least taking a stand for our history. It's a never-ending pit. Once things start going, you never can satisfy that animal. It's going to keep eating and eating and eating and eating. Ron DeSantis has already signed the Combating Public Disorder Act. Any person who willfully or maliciously damages a memorial or other piece of historic property is committing a third-degree felony, which carries up to a 5-year prison sentence. I believe that all the history is important for my county, your county, the entire state of Florida. I don't think that any World War II veteran, World War I veteran, Vietnam veteran, Korean War veteran, Civil War veteran, none of them deserve to be disgraced. I think this is your history, my history, their history. We should leave all the memorials where they stand. And I'm glad that y'all are broadening the scope to not only cover war memorials and veteran memorials, but all memorials and all things that mean something to your county, because the history of your county is extremely important. History of my county is extremely important. I wish that my commission would take a stand like y'all are doing. Thank you all very much.
Walter Dinkla. Walter Dinkla.
Good afternoon. I'm Walter Dinkla, Commander, United States Navy, retired. I say this to put in context my remarks and not for applause. Anyone who undertakes an action for thanks anticipated needs to reevaluate their motives. I oppose the adoption of this ordinance for the following reasons. First, change should come from need, and there is none. Second, monuments have a limited impact on teaching history. Third, we should take care lest we become a nation of laws and not freedom. I learned many things in the Navy. An important lesson was that change is often sought not out of need, but of a desire for recognition. My first squadron was and is the Navy's oldest continuously active squadron. We had won awards for battle readiness, safety, training, and retention. With the change of command, the new CO implemented changes. This was not done to make improvements. This was done so that he could say he'd made changes on his fitness report. These awards I mentioned, they did not stay with us during the next reporting period. Change is sexy. It is eye-catching and self-promoting, but meaningless unless it has value. Recent history shows that this change sought by this ordinance is unnecessary. Monuments have a limited impact on teaching history. I was briefly attached to a Royal Navy destroyer sailing out of Portsmouth, England. Awaiting our sailing, I walked along the seafront and found multiple monuments dedicated to regiments who sailed from that port going to the Crimean War from 1853 to 1856. The names graven in granite were barely legible. Grandchildren of those men were dust in the grave, and the monuments had only become a backdrop that barely garnered a glance. What value did those monuments provide? None. In Portsmouth, Virginia, stands the Victory Arch that the Doughboys marched through on their return from the Great War. Its meaning lost on all but a few. If we want to teach history, if we want to learn from history, we need to give it more than the passing glance that monuments get. Passing this ordinance places us closer to becoming a nation of laws, of prisons, and not of freedoms. It seeks constraints and not the liberty we should provide each other. This ordinance should not be adopted. First, there is no need. Second, protecting monuments that have a limited impact on teaching history serve no valid purpose. Third, laws that restrict freedom must always be suspect. Finally, there should be recognition that all citizens count, their thoughts fully considered, and not just a hollow, pro forma, public demonstration that sees a predetermined conclusion carried out. However, I'm not hopeful. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, even if my words are ignored.
Thank you, Mr. Dinkler.
Thanks for your service.
Mr. Newsom?
Hello, Commissioners. It's been a while. First of all, I'm a veteran. My father was a veteran of World War II, and my great-grandfather and his 5 sons were veterans. I support the American flag. I put my hand on my heart, and I say the Pledge of Allegiance. Many people in this room didn't. You know, July 4th is being called a racist day. The American flag is under attack now. It's being called racist. I knew people of Southern heritage knew this was going to happen. 5 years ago, I said, the Confederate monuments is low-hanging fruit. They're going after everything. And all of you can see it. They're going after everything. All veterans, like I said, all veterans' monuments are intact. I like these signs you're going to put up for Mr. Jenkins, a Medal of Honor winner, an American hero. Vietnam veteran. Vietnam War memorials are under attack. They're being vandalized across America. This ordinance is needed. It is relevant. And I want to thank all of you. We need more politicians like the 5 of you in Florida and America.
I'm not a politician.
We need more of you. You have courage and you have backbones. I wish you could run for representative or state senator.
Ain't gonna happen.
Think about that in the future. We need people like you.
Thank you.
Yeah, ain't gonna happen.
But yeah, I read this ordinance. It is great. It protects the murals. You've got beautiful murals in this city. It protects them. All the monuments on the front of the courthouse from War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, all of them. And the Confederate monument. They're all Americans. They're all American veterans. So thank you very much for what you're doing. A lot of people appreciate it. And we need more people like you.
Thank you, Mr. Newsom. Kevin Como? Kevin Como? Kevin Como? Connor, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, no, come on now. I do need to remind you, we have a 5:05 we can get close to. It's only going to take us about 5 minutes, but we do have one item we got to skip to. Mr. Kevin, I'm sorry I pronounced your name wrong.
That's okay, no big deal. Thank you for the opportunity. Our last speaker was laying it on really thick, I would say, thanking you, saying need 5 more just like you. I would say the whole reason this is being considered, it's not about the murals. I would agree with that. I would agree with protecting a Vietnam memorial. It is about the racism that lies behind the monument. That's why we're here. And we're here because, particularly in this room at this time, because of a complete lack of diversity of those who make decisions. If you look around, I'm not in charge. These people are not in charge.
Talk to us, please.
They are not in charge behind me. The people that are in charge are up here and on the periphery, right? Standing guard, tactical vests and weapons. Those are the people in charge, and every single one is white. And that's what's going on. So you've got a county here with 17% BIPOC color people here, and look, and probably 30-40% of your crowd is African American in this here right now. So there's a complete lack of actual representation. You sit there and make decisions based on on who you are and the life you have lived, and not considering, as I believe probably a lot of you subscribe to the Christian religion, to the needs of those of the least, right? So, so you're supposed to sit there, you're supposed to take our input, but this block in your head that is white supremacy that you can't even see that you benefit of prevents you from making a decision for everyone. I want to talk about the principles for which they fought for will live eternally. That's what's written on your monument. What are those principles? I think that we could ask the Vice President of the Confederate States of America. Alexander Stephens said, "Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea of the United States. Its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon that great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. The foundation, the cornerstone, is slavery with white supremacy on top." That is the principles for which they fought for, that if you make a decision to keep this there, to prevent any future vote that could remove this, you are complicit in that. Thank you for your time.
All right, we're going to recess the workshop, go back to our Board of County Commission meeting. We're going to open the Board of County Commission meeting. We have a 5:05 certain, and let me get to the page on that. That's page 319 in your packet. Mr. Peckham and Mr. Siafi. This will only take a few minutes, so bear with us, please.
So, as we talked about last month, we're here to present the ordinance changes that have been required by the Department of Emergency Management at the state level, and that came down, of course, from FEMA. So what it amounts to is the mobile homes that are installed in the flood hazard area, new mobile homes, will have to be elevated 1 foot higher. And there is a size limit on accessory structures that can be built without elevation. So they can be flood vented, but above 600 square feet, they've got to be elevated.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any comments? Mr. Turner?
Yeah, nothing changed since last time. It's just, we're just carrying this forward from the workshop.
Yes, sir.
From the other meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Has not changed.
So I'm ready whenever you get done with
Okay.
your hearing stuff.
This is a public hearing, so is there anybody from the public would like to speak about the ordinance on the flood issue that we're having in Putnam County? Okay, seeing no issues. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Has anybody read this ordinance by title?
Thank you. No, we do need to do that.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
What will be this ordinance number? Do we know at this point?
It's blank.
2021-16.
So it's ordinance number 2021?
016.
016.
Yeah.
An ordinance by the Board of County Commissioners amending Article 6 of the Putnam County Land Development Code to provide criteria for accessory structures in flood hazard areas, to specify elevation of manufactured homes in flood hazard areas, and providing for applicability and severability, and providing for the effective date. Mr. Chairman, we move this forward.
Second.
Proper motion by Commissioner Turner to adopt ordinance number 2021-016. Proper second by Commissioner Rawls. Any further discussion amongst the board members on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And that concludes our Board of County Commission meeting.
Thank
Now
you.
we're going to go back to our workshop meeting. And Mr. Adamczak, you had your light on, sir.
So, Mr. Connor, I appreciate some of your commentary, and the bottom line is this, is we're the people that chose to run for office, and we're the people that are here. The diversity, lack of diversity, or whatever you want to say, whether it's lack of females or male or black males or Hispanics, is due to the fact that none of those ran for office. I encourage anyone in this room, if you want to run for any of these offices, that you do it. I'm all for having as many people on every ballot there is possible, and as much diversity in the conversation during the campaigning timeframe, and as much of that as possible. I think that needs to happen. I think that needs to happen in every community around this country, and I'm all for it. So that part of what you said, I appreciate. Thank you very much. We definitely, I make no decisions on who gets hired in the sheriff's office, but there's plenty of diversity in our sheriff's office. Thank you.
You know, I'm gonna say this one last time. We didn't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt us. And we're here, we're your citizens, we're your employees. I'm sorry, okay? I misspoke. I'm sorry, ma'am. Don't laugh. It's been a long day. I've been up since 4:30 this morning. Been a long day. Okay, so if I made a faux pas, everybody go ahead and laugh and get it over with. But I'm a man of God, and I'm gonna tell you something right now. We're going to have order today. Okay, thank you very much. That's your opinion, that's fine. That's fine. And I appreciate that opinion, but I don't subscribe to it. Okay, next speaker, Andrea Conover. Andrea Conover, she's not here. Jamie Parham. Ask Kevin Connor. I don't know what that means.
Oh, yes. Since he posted my address online nearly 300 times with Ron Rawls.
Okay.
So I apologize if I'm a little bit shaky right now. Known Antifa activist and pedophile and date rapist Kevin Connor, who's wanted in Baker County right now for texting little girls.
Okay.
Including texting my daughter. He pretended to be me and texted my 14-year-old daughter.
You speak to us, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Thank you.
Speak to
First
us.
of all, I'd like to thank you for proposing the protection for American veterans memorials.
Please.
And that veteran that spoke earlier does not speak for all of us. Moreover, his description of fallen memorials is just sad and gives us more motivation to protect ours. Whether burn, loot, and murder likes it or not, Confederate veterans are American veterans. These men fought for the state of Florida as well as for their hometown. They didn't fight so that some plantations could keep their slaves. If that was true, then why were the last states to give up their slaves both northern states? Delaware and New Jersey, in fact. It wasn't about race either. Right up the road is Kingsley Plantation, owned by a black woman who owned slaves herself. Our history is a shared history. Free black men fought for the South and were proud of their service. They call Confederates traitors, yet many wore the American uniform in wars afterwards. General Wheeler of the Confederacy was Teddy Roosevelt's commanding general of the Rough Riders, and impossible thing to do if they were traitors. The truth is that these Marxists, and the truth is that these are Marxist, and their real intention is the destruction of the West. Everywhere they can't attack Confederate memorials, they attack other historical statues. They just took down Lois and Clark in Sacagawea. These same cockroaches took down Lincoln, who freed the slaves.
Stop.
You cannot give in to the Marxist Maoist mob. If you do, that has nothing to race. That applies to Connor as well.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to stop this conversation. And that's with you too over there on the side. Now, wait a second. When you want to direct us, please talk to us.
Yes,
but
sir.
don't make accusations against people, okay? Talk to us like we're here.
Yeah,
Don't call
okay,
them names.
sure.
Don't call.
Okay,
just
fair enough.
Talk to us, okay?
Yes, sir. Got
Thank
it.
you. Thank you very much, everybody.
You cannot give in to the Marxist and Maoist mob. If you do, they will build momentum and go after the next target. Maybe a tree that no one was hanged on. Maybe critical racism training in our schools. History must be protected whether you like it or not. Tearing down our history will not make these people happy. They will continue to blame their situation on white people as they murder each other in ever-increasing numbers. Again, Confederate veterans are American veterans, and we will defend them. They are not traitors. Because if they were traitors, they could not have fought in the wars afterwards, which they did, wearing American uniforms. We will not allow any more compromises with these evil people, and neither should you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Sheila Beck? Ms. Sheila Beck?
Chairman Harvey, I'd like to read something into the record.
Mr. Adamczak, you have the floor.
So our First Amendment of our Constitution reads, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Nowhere in our Constitution does it say separation of freedom of church and state, and it shouldn't be so. People, whether you're elected or not, have the right to have beliefs and views. And the idea that someone, just because someone's standing up here in front of us, assumes that we're associated with any one of the people in this room is ridiculous, because we're here to represent everyone. Thank you.
Sheila Beck, you have the floor, please. Sheila Beck, I'm sorry.
Come on, you should have it down to perfection. So I just want to let y'all know that I agree with the ordinance. I think that it needs to be put in place. I really was just coming up here to thank everybody, but since it was so abruptly brought out that all of you are white.
Really? I am? And I went to
think
Palaca
all of
Central
our-
High School, believe that or not.
I think all of our city commissioners are African American, and our mayor is African American.
Okay.
I mean, it's not that the community put you all there. They didn't put you there because you were white or because of any other reason but that we thought that you were the people that could do the job for us. I just want this to be over. All this stupid nonsense just needs to be over. But I do have a question. When the ordinance goes into place, what is the penalty?
Right now, there are penalties built inside that ordinance, and we can get you a copy of that. There should be, there is some, but we're going to tweak it a little bit more from my understanding today.
Okay.
So there are penalties.
Okay. All right, well, I thank you all for your time, and I know you guys have been through a lot with this issue. Mr. Turner, you going to stick around for a while?
I hope not.
Oh, come on.
Thank you,
Well, I'm sure I'll see you on another issue, but from my standpoint, I want to let everybody know I'm done. I am done. Y'all could fight amongst yourselves, you could do whatever you want, but Sheila is done.
Okay, Mr. Tavell Adams. Are they clapping because she's done? Mr. Adams, thank you.
Hold on, I'm going to set up my laptop. I have my public comments on my laptop.
What'd you say?
Sir?
What'd you say?
I have my public comments on my laptop. I believe that Stand Your Ground Putnam and Take 'em Down Putnam have something we want the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners to do, and that is to make a decision on whether or not the Confederate statue will be removed from the grounds of the Putnam County Courthouse. A decision was made that placed unethical stipulations on a group of private citizens, having to raise $200,000 in 90 days, and all the money had to come from within Putnam County. Private citizens did not erect the statue, so why do citizens have to raise the money to fund its removal? It is contradictory to vote on moving the statue, but yet pass an ordinance to leave it untouched. We have been at a standstill since 1924, and we are ready for a long and overdue change. We need leaders, not those who prolong change and prevent Putnam County from prospering and moving forward. Take 'em Down Putnam has presented itself numerous times throughout the past year to advocate for what is right, and our county leaders continue to advocate for what is wrong. It has been said that Putnam County residents don't care enough about the statue, nor do they advocate for the removal of it. Myself and others can attest that these claims are untrue. Has the BOCC been to a protest or rally to see how deep racism runs within Putnam County? Has the BOCC engaged in dialogue and created relationships with members of the black community regarding this problem? If this ordinance passes, the statute stays. If it doesn't, the statute still stays. This move from Commissioner Rawls is an example of performative politics, meaning that this is just for show. HB1 already covers the protection of the Confederate monuments, and he wants to go over it again for what? Because he's up for re-election, and he wants to give his voters a performance because there's no need for a protection ordinance in Putnam County. We never want to rewrite history or erase it. We are for learning from history and never repeating it again. We are for preserving history, but it is about whether history is being preserved, and that's the problem at the courthouse. We believe that it shouldn't be on public property, and definitely not on the walkway of justice, because justice is blind and doesn't discriminate. The Confederate statue discriminates and looks down on people of color standing 20 feet tall in the center of the walkway. It is encrypted on the side that the principles for which the Confederacy fought for will live eternally, and that principle is keeping slavery alive. If the Putnam County BOCC wants to keep a statue that was erected for that purpose, then your legacy as a leader and your morals and values will be judged by the eyes of God.
Mr. Adams, if you'll wrap up, please.
Yes, sir. How will your legacy as a leader be remembered? Will you continue to push your own agenda, even if it means breaking down and demoralizing the black community? Or will you consider the black community and create change that will bring unity?
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you.
Next, Reverend Johnny John.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to
Mr.
address
Rawls.
some comments. Mr. Adams, you're dead wrong on HB1. That's regarding vandalism. Without a veterans memorial or monument protection ordinance, somebody else could come in, another commission, and remove this. So you're dead wrong there. As far as me getting up here and doing this because I'm running for re-election, has nothing to do with it. I voted against the movement of it last time anyways. I wasn't running then either. So you really should, before you should open your mouth, you really should think about what you're going to say, because you're not right. You're absolutely wrong. And you guys can sit there. You guys can sit there and bring all the crap you want.
Mr.
You're
Rawls.
wrong. I can't.
Okay.
I can't.
Stop. We have a speaker on the, Mr. Rawls. Okay, stop right now. Stop. Stop.
This is predictable. This is all predictable.
Okay, Mr. Johns? Reverend Johns? Reverend Johns, go ahead, please, sir. Reverend Johns, you have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This is a
And Mr.
touchy.
John, Reverend, may I say, I grew up on Roselle Avenue myself.
Wonderful.
So,
Great.
yes, sir, I saw that.
Thank
and
you.
Remember that old rock road that if you wiped that on your bicycle, it'd rip your skin off your bones?
Yeah.
just about. So, yes, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you. I stand here as one that's not only a black man, but I also stand as a pastor of a church. But I also am one that have served my country as a chaplain for the 125th Fighter Wing in Jacksonville, Florida. I was a chaplain. I went in as a lieutenant, came out as a captain. So as far as recognizing those that have served the community, I have no problem with recognizing individuals that fight for their country. I do want to share a quick story. I have a friend by the name of Mr. Tobias. Mr. Tobias, he and I was in a conversation, and he was struggling, trying to understand the problem in the black community. He shared a story with me. He told me about his two daughters. He said he has one daughter that life is going really well for her. He said everything we tell her to do, she does it, and life is really going well. Said, but I have another daughter, and she's just the opposite. Said she doesn't do anything we tell her to do, and yet her life is just turned upside down. He says, and so that's the problem that I see. I said, Mr. Tobias, but you left one thing out. He said, I told him that America has never accepted me as his son. I've never been accepted as a child of America because I'm a black man. I've always been seen as a second or third class citizen. This is why even when we won the opportunity to vote, we had to count jelly beans in a jar. If you look up KKK meets its match in Putnam County, you will have something to be proud of. Because there you will find the story about a gentleman that served this community in the height of racism, that stood to protect every life that matters in Putnam County. That's the true Every Life Matters story. But in that year, 1924, in that year, he lost the election to one that took the side of the Ku Klux Klan. That was the same year that that statue went up. How is it that we can sit here and pretend that that has nothing to do with it? Satan is a lie. I would never go to a church that has a cross upside down in its yard, because I know that that's a symbol of witchcraft. I know this.
Reverend?
And so therefore I wouldn't do it.
Thank you.
And so how is it that you expect your black citizens to feel like they can really go into a house that's supposed to give them true justice, blind justice, where a symbol is out there that represents racism at its highest height?
Thank you,
God
Reverend.
bless
Thank
you,
you.
and
Thank
I
you.
pray that you make the right
Thank you.
decision.
Dan Askew? Dan Askew?
Chairman Harvey. Chairman
Dan.
Harvey, I'd like to say something. So I just want to say to you, Reverend, that I respect you as a brother in God. And secondly, Sheriff Peter Hagan was a hero to this community, and he should be memorialized, and he should be someone that's covered by this ordinance. That's why I wish to expand it, so that if we ever did put forward a memorial to Sheriff Hagan, which it was talked about, potentially put his name on the courthouse or other things during this conversation over the last 2 years, I absolutely support that, having something memorializing him and his efforts here, and even having that as part of a historical society thing, whatever we need to do, because that is an important, very important part of our history here in this county, and I support that 100%. But on the other hand, he also be protected by the same ordinance.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Askew? Dan Askew? Dan Askew? Going once. Margaret Teeny Askew? Okay. Thank you for the commentary. Appreciate it.
She's letting you know.
Reverend Tommy Rogers?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Reverend. Thank you for being here.
And thank you. I spoke during one of the online opportunities when the issue came up first, and to see the vote that happened a little under a year ago was very, very hopeful. It's hard to know exactly what happened from that point to where we are now, to where we're standing and a bill is being forwarded that is speaking to issues side-handedly. Well, the primary issue is the statute. we have here PFC Robert Jenkins Memorial. I'm a former Marine myself. To associate this Medal of Honor recipient, posthumous Medal of Honor recipient, in the same light as the Confederate statue is, just in my estimation, a little embarrassing. And as someone that wore the uniform, and I honor all of your service that did, I honor your service for being here today, representing our community. I don't believe that it is an equivalency. The Confederate States of America did not stand. Southern tradition stands. They are not the same. I think floating this ordinance in this way, with the background of the statue, is not worthy of this body. If you want the statue to stay, put forth something for the statue. This statue does not represent the United States of America. It represents the Confederate States of America. Let's be real. I think it is, again, I spoke of I see my time. I spoke of how it feels as a black man to go to the courthouse and have to walk past the statue. It hurts. Empathy is, I believe, one of the primary needs for representation. You represent everyone. I think having the empathy for those that are hurt by the statue being there, and it is not an illegitimate, it is a real hurt. My father,
Reverend, if you're
I know, I see it.
Okay.
My father worked. When my father bought a brand new car, he had to park his car around the corner and had to walk up because a black man could not drive a new car on the premises. That hurt was real. And this hurt that we feel about the statue is real.
Thank you.
And I just want you to recognize
sir.
that.
I
And I thank
appreciate
you for
your
your time.
Thank you. Mr. Adamczak?
There's nothing in this ordinance that stack ranks memorials or statues or anything, whether it's a street name or anything, compared to one another. It's not a comparative ordinance. It's a protection of all things that are considered commemorative. And that's what I hope it is. And if it isn't that, I won't vote yes for it. So to be clear on that. So if it doesn't protect every different type of memorial, whether it's something I believe in or something you believe in that I don't, I want to protect all of them because we all have the right to be able to equally enjoy what we feel we enjoy, and we also have the right to also be offended by what we find offensive, and that's each of our prerogatives. This protects all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adamczak. Karen Chadwick. Karen, are you here? Okay.
Hello. I know a little bit about my family tree, my family history, going back to the early 1800s. Because we were white, we had the luxury of not being sold off at the plantation and lose our family lineage. This is my great-great-grandmother's clay pipe from like the 1830s. And I have a couple of things that means something to me, and I have that luxury of having that going way back. So this is my, I'm just gonna read this to try to get through it fast. This is my great-great-grandma Betty Harrison's clay pipe. She was related to William Henry Harrison, who had the shortest presidential term in the history of American presidents. His term ran from March 4th, 1841 to April 4th, 1841. On my grandfather's side, the Dixons settled Dixon Valley, just south of Ellington, Missouri. And I'm a Florida native, you know, I'm a Southerner. So they had, both families had a lot of farmland. I have the ox bell that was on their ox, the Dixon family, when they first came to the valley. Something to be proud of, but slavery was prevalent during that time, and I'm not proud of that. My great uncle on the Dixon side fought in the Civil War on the Confederate side and was grazed on the forehead by a Union bullet. He played dead to avoid further injury or death. On the Harrison side, my grandmother's side, near Ellington, the Harrisons sold hay and other provisions to the Union. I have the handwritten receipts from 1862. There is no doubt the benefits of the economic benefits of slavery played a role in the reason for secession and political control of the South. My grandfather, born in 1870, became a dentist in Ellington, Missouri, and my grandmother, born in 1890, became a nurse and was a charge nurse in an amputee hospital during World War II. After that, she worked for the health department, making home visits. They were upstanding members of their communities, but racism was prevalent. My grandmother would say things like, "Clean this place up so it looks like white folks live here." Even as a small child, I thought that was a horrible thing to say. Societies change. We can do better. I still hear racist comments in this county a lot. Segregation, separate but equal, was supposed to have ended, but symbols still exist. Many people don't realize there were as an example, there were two attractions at Silver Springs. One for whites only, and another one for blacks, built in the late 40s. It was called Paradise Park.
Karen, you know the drill. Start
Okay,
wrapping.
I just got a little bit more. And then it was destroyed in the late 1960s when I was 10 years old. So this book, Paradise Park, came out about it a few years ago. It's easy for whites to not be concerned about such things because it didn't affect us. But residual prominent symbols of oppression can still sully the lives of those that the monuments to their ancestors' oppression are placed in dominant public places. Empathy is not a weakness. Empathy takes strength. Governor DeSantis signed a law making it
Karen,
a felony.
we need to wrap up.
Okay, I got like 3 sentences.
Okay.
To damage military monuments. This county ordinance is not needed. I know black folks that will not speak up because they feel it does no good. This proposed ordinance is nothing more than a message to those people that they are right. Their voice does not count.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Mike Edison? Mike Edison? Mike Edison? Amy Curtel? Amy Curtel? Amy? She here? Yes.
That's me. I'm here. Pulling up my notes. I'll be real quick. I'll try. All right. Hello, my name is Amy Cotrier. I'm sure some of you remember me. A lot of y'all know that I'm for the removal of the statue from the courthouse. I was here when y'all were talking about the money. Everybody knows that's a lot of money. There could be a lot more good uses for that money than taking down that statue. I think that's something that everybody can agree on, and several of us thought of many more constructive things to do with the money. I'd mentioned some, but this is not about being controversial. Being controversial for the sake of being controversial is not productive for healing. This is about trying to reconcile in our country the things that happened here. It's not time to protect the statues. It's time to help heal the people and really reclaim what happened in our past. I believe the best way to go about this is through truth and reconciliation. I believe that Florida needs to be more active because we did have a lot of violence happen around the time that the statues came up. And everybody has things that they don't talk about that is passed down through their family that led them to what is going on today in their lives. Let's reestablish oral history and tradition in our community. Instead of making new laws to protect these material things, let's create a more active database to record our own personal family histories and experiences here in Florida. I know we have a lot of technology, and if we have truths to tell, then we can learn from it. The statue would probably come down more willingly after a concession of heart and a revelation of truth amongst each other. I really do think this is the way. This shouldn't be about fighting and spectacle. I'm hoping in the next couple of years we're going to be able to talk more to each other so that way we can all be more inclusive. Maybe we can find connections that we never thought we had. The peaceful ones need to stay involved with each other if we are to change society for the better. One day, I would like to see us all change. I'd also like to thank everybody for coming out. I'm very grateful. I would also like to mention that I myself am a Christian, and I often feel like we are living in the book of Amos. If you guys understand that, good. And if you don't, it's time that you go back to the Word of God. That's all I got.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan Bocourt? Dan Bocourt? I know I messed up your name and I apologize. I do apologize. How do you pronounce your name when you get up here, sir?
People in France and Quebec say it differently. Bocourt.
Okay, thank you.
Well, you know,
B-O-I, so it kind of.
I've heard a lot of people talk here, and they're much more elegant than me, because I'm kind of a bull in a china shop. I'm just
Sir,
thinking
would
of
you
shades
talk
of-
into the microphone if you could?
I'm just thinking of when I go home at night, and I've spoken to my children about statues way before we came out here. They said, didn't they lose the war? I said, yeah, but they were tough fighters, and they honor them. But when I came out here, I'm kind of breaking up. This is hard. I can go home at night and tell my kids, well, you don't have to deal with it, the shades and the darkness that they had to. But when there's a lot of black people go home and their grandchildren and their children, they ask them, why is it still up there? Such disrespect. And don't have feelings how they feel. They should walk in their shoes a bit. Might be a whole hell of a lot easier for them to take down the statue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wade Alford, Mr. Alford. Wade Alford.
It's almost evening. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I
Could you
represent.
put that microphone to you? There you go.
I, full disclosure, represent Say Southern Heritage, and I'm a member of the SCV. It's beyond my understanding how inanimate objects can cause so much chaos in a community. The thing that the Southern people want to honor, people like myself, is that someone answered a call and they were called upon by their government, regardless of what that government was at the time, and did what they were asked to do. That's the honor that you learn. There's a fellow here who said he was in the Marine Corps. Well, I was in the Marine Corps too. I was 5 years old when that guy got killed. It's one of the reasons why I went in the Marine Corps. One of many reasons. But all of this coming together, I just want to let you guys know, protecting this thing is important to me. Protecting all these things are important to me. My father was Senator Bill Pierce's farm manager. And down St. John's Avenue, there's a picture of Senator Bill Pierce with some cabbage. I could take my children down, my grandchildren down there, and say, that was my dad that ran that farm for that man. You know, I've been here 56 years with the exception of my time in the service. A lot of these people that are here complaining have never stood in a foot of snow in Korea waiting to call home on Christmas night, or seen their friends blown up in Lebanon. A lot of these people here that are complaining have never tried to sleep on a carrier when F-14s and the A-6Bs are bouncing off the deck or doing catapult launches. And there's a whole lot of them that have no clue what all that's about. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think this is a wonderful thing for PFC Jenkins, and I appreciate that you try to preserve and protect some things that are near and dear to us. But I also want to caution you about kicking the can down the road. We have standing now, the SCV has standing in federal court to start putting these monuments back. And we really don't want to be spending taxpayer dollars bouncing around fighting back and forth, up and down, continuing on and on. We're headed for the Supreme Court with Pensacola, Madison, and St. Augustine. And by golly, we're going to try our hardest to get it done. So protecting these things might be in your best interest. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service to our country. Marshall Ralston? Marshall Ralston? Ralston? Marshall? Not here. David, this is going to be hard. Beturke?
He's up.
I'm sorry, sir? Okay, thank you, sir. Please come up and,
Long before I came around. It's been a tough.
would you put that microphone to your, there you go, sir.
Okay. I wasn't involved last time when the issues were being discussed about the statue. And I owe a bit of a apology to these folks sitting over here because I was one that sat at home. When the decision was made that it could be moved if the price was right, that's when I got angry. And I wrote a letter in the paper explaining that this was just such a horrible thing. Why would you charge that much money when they regularly moved this size ones for about $20,000? Well, what he told me was that you all didn't want it moved. You had pulled a Jim Crow maneuver that would absolutely say, okay, y'all win, move it, and then do it in such a fashion that it couldn't happen. And that's exactly what that was. And this subject died. It sort of went away. And all of a sudden it's back. And I was like, well, what are they doing? Well, first of all, they've decided to tie a statue from Confederate soldiers that fought to destroy the United States government. And they've tied it in with some really good, fine people that served in Vietnam and World War II and Korea, and try to cover up some of the meanings that those of us who do not believe the Confederacy should be honored. It allowed you all a little cover. Well, as I wrote in today's paper, laws can be passed. Next year, laws can be repassed. Eventually, the young people of this county are going to raise up, and all of these statues to the Confederacy will be gone. That's one of the reasons why.
Let the man speak, please.
That's one of the reasons we see the number of charter schools in this area. It's because it enables the parents to sort of maybe have a little bit of segregation. But you look at the public schools and look at the mixing of the kids, and they don't have the hate that you all grew up with. Plain and simple. So as I said in today's article in the paper, and I'm not going to read that article because we need to support our local press. We need to go buy the paper damn selves. And I'll now stay with this group until this statue is a pile of rubbish up at the dump. Thank you.
Okay, that's the end of our speaker cards. We're done with public comment. So we thank y'all for being here. We do kind of know that we want to expand this a little bit more according to Commissioner Adams' Act, so we're going to be working on that. But we're done with that, so thank you very much for attending. Yes, ma'am?
I just want to ask one question.
Please come up and state your name real quick, please. Ma'am, you're going to have to come. You cannot do that. I'll allow one person. Come up here and speak, please. You're going to have to, ma'am. There's people watching online. No, ma'am, you don't, because there's people watching online that can't hear you, okay?
I just have one question, and it's for the commissioners. Have you taken into consideration what the Confederate statue, what it actually represents to the black population?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
when you made that decision, had you really soul searched and wanted to know how it was going to affect all of us?
Yeah,
You did?
yep,
Yes, ma'am.
You based your decision on that?
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I also
need an
took in
answer.
consideration
Thank you.
the rest of the citizens of Putnam County that
Ma'am?
weren't, that had no dog in the fight, just people
Okay.
like myself. I didn't even grow up in the United States of America. So, yes, I did.
Miss, I didn't get your name and address for the record. I'm sorry.
Cookie Cave.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay, we're going to end our public comments. Thank you all for coming, and we appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to commissioner requests. No, ma'am, we're done with we're done with comments. Thank you. All right, commissioner requests, Mr. Adamsack, I'll start with you.
I have none.
Please, please, we're still having a meeting here. Thank you. Commissioner request, Mr. Okay, please, please. Okay, please. Mr. Adamsack, you have the floor, sir.
I have none, thank you.
You have none? Mr. Turner?
None.
Mr. Rawls?
I just wanted to point out that Mr. Commander has already revised this and sent it back to us.
Okay, thank you. Would y'all please let us finish our meeting? Would you take your comments outside, please?
I have nothing else.
Thank you. Mr. Pickens?
I have none.
County Attorney, Mr. Commando?
No, sir, thank you.
Mr. Administrator?
No, sir, I do not.
Any public comments on miscellaneous items we have not covered today?
Mr. Chair, I do. I apologize. I need, just so you, from my 5 commissioners will understand that.
Please, please.
Based on some conversations that we've had earlier, I will not be here for the next Board of County Commission meeting, possibly not the workshop either. I have some appointments that day that I need to follow up on to get taken care of that are.
Well, we need you for the long haul and not, so we need you to take care of yourself. So I thank you very much, sir.
Basically, what you're saying is if we want anything done that day that you don't like, we need to get it handled that day.
You know, that's probably not a bad thing, but yes, sir, jump all over. But no, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in 4 weeks.
Okay, I do have one thing. It's a little controversial. Won't take but just a second, so don't beat me yet. I know, but I want to hit myself with it, believe me.
JR?
Last week when I went to EOC, I pulled up there and I looked at that sign that wasn't doing anything. And I thought to myself,
They were working on that the other day.
and I thought to myself, we have got to have this sign where we can inform the public. So I have a solution, commissioners, and I have I think a really good solution. Right now, we're doing surplus sale equipment from the EOC. We have a bid out on the street right now, and the price is pretty high on the bid items so far. And we're,
I don't care, that's fine.
and we're going to have another one soon. And I say that we dedicate all the money from the surplus sale equipment from the EOC to fix that sign so we can inform the citizens of Putnam County when we need to.
I'd like to see what the overall cost.
I understand that. I just want JR to have some opinion to go back and look at that, but I appreciate.
Bare minimum.
Thank you. Mr. Pickens?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and just apologize. We hired JR to be the person to lead the team, to make the changes that we need to make for our fire service and our emergency services. And he's doing a great job. His staff is doing a great job. Not that other departments aren't doing a great job either, but we asked this young man, he was the one hired to take care of this. I understand this is a lot of money. And Commissioner Turner did say if it was passionate to you, that we would go with that. And I would have gone with that. I probably should have spoke up more. So I'm speaking up now, because we've asked this young man to take care of our situation, and this is one small part. But he came to us with a problem and a solution. He had the money that wasn't going to be used. Could it be used for something else? Yes, no question about that. But I'll definitely agree to look at the cost and allocate from the sales enough to repair that so it'll operate the way it's supposed to. And I'm sure there's some other things he wants to do with the EOC that can be done later, but I'm in agreement with that.
Thank you. Mr. Grimes, will you get that information and we'll talk about it at the next meeting and we'll be able to use that money, then it comes, no taxpayer money, yeah, but we're good. So good. Thank you very much, board.
And
We're just agreeing to hear about it right now.
And I want to clarify, because JR and I have talked about this a little bit, and I knew exactly where Commissioner Turner was coming from. But JR was just presenting an issue that needed to be taken care of. So I want to clarify that, but
Thank you.
I'm for trying to get that thing fixed.
All right. Any public comments on miscellaneous items? Seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.